At 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This morning we report on fury on family farms.
Farmers across the country are gearing up to protest against the government's inheritance tax raid on the agricultural sector.
This comes as former Prime Minister Boris Johnson criticises the government's policy.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
Our presenter Emily Carver will be live from a farm on Exmoor all day for us.
Pressure mounts on the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, to resign over his handling of child abuse scandal involving the most prolific serial abuser in the Church of England.
The US envoy vows to fight climate change despite Donald Trump's recent victory as the COP29 conference continues.
Still looking for your Christmas presents? Well, we'll be joined by EastEnders star Lacey Turner to reveal her perfect picks.
Fears grow that supermarket prices could increase following the government's national insurance tax raid on businesses. We're asking, is the move immoral?
And in my sports labour exchange, there are vacancies coming up as Premier League referee David Coote's in all sorts of trouble. Gary Lineker's set to leave match of the day, and 8 players pull out of the England squad.
It's a bit colder out there this morning, and there are some fog patches around as well. But for many, it'll be a fine autumn day. Join me later for a full forecast.
Hello there. A very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, good news this morning. That's a little weekend vacancy opening up for you and me.
You think so?
I think so.
We're talking about the referee, we're talking about the Lineker. You know what? I think,
Quite a few sports jobs up for grabs.
The 2 of us for the price of Lineker.
Yeah.
Actually, the 3 of us, if you're interested there, Izzy, yeah.
I would not qualify in any way to do that job in a million years.
I don't believe that.
It could have been me all those years ago.
I know it could have been. I know it could have been.
I think you'd have enjoyed that so much more.
I would have enjoyed it. I'd have been very good at it too. But the thing is that Gary, the BBC invested so much money in him, and they trained him like they never trained anybody before. And he has become really well associated with the programme. And I hear that he doesn't want to leave. That the BBC have decided that's enough of you. You're going to get the elbow.
He'll be 65. 25 years he's been doing it.
It's got nothing to do with it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that's anything.
OK, easy. I'm just giving a few facts. I didn't say that would be it.
No, I think he's in his prime. I think he's very, very good at what he does. And it seems to be some sort of personal vendetta that the BBC have decided they are fed up with him talking.
It's quite a way off, though, till he's going, isn't it? He's got
just the end of the season.
The World Cup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. It's right after this, right after the World Cup. So there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time. See, the thing, I don't think it's a real surprise, but also where are they going to go now? Because surely the smart money would have been on Jermaine Genius, but now we know he's out of the way. So where do they go now?
Well, they could go to Gabby Yorath. They could go to. Who else? There's a few other.
Alex Scott?
Yes, I think she'd probably be a popular choice.
No.
With the BBC?
I wouldn't. I don't think she's got enough gravitas, really, with it.
Mark Chapman?
Mark Chapman, yes, but he's not a big enough name.
Bring back Des.
Oh, my goodness.
That's the answer.
Well, no one like Des. Des was the top man. But I think Gary Lineker really has made the job his own. And
yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah. I think this is the thing with television. They think it doesn't matter who presents, people will watch the product.
Yeah.
Anyway, which is nonsense. But anyway, that's the way it is.
Well, never mind a vacancy at Match of the Day. Could there soon be a vacancy for Archbishop of Canterbury? Justin Welby is facing increased pressure to stand down over his handling of a child abuse scandal.
An independent report exposed his failure to act on allegations involving a barrister, John Smith, who's been one of the Church's most prolific abusers.
Well, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, refused to back the Archbishop of Canterbury, stating that the issue was actually a matter for the Church.
Director of Affinity Gospel Churches in Partnership, Graham Nichols, joins us now. So, who's to take responsibility for this, Graham?
Well, I think, as in lots of organisations, the man at the top needs to seriously consider whether he should take responsibility. I think the evidence is mounting that there was knowledge that Justin Welby personally had over a decade ago and probably didn't act fast enough or go far enough. And it also seems, just particularly in the last few days, but leading up to this, that he's lost the confidence of lots of clergy and people actually from different parts of the church, more from kind of my side of the church, the evangelical wing. There's a loss of confidence, but also it's kind of right across the church. So I think there's lots of reasons. I mean, at a personal level, he was not guilty of abuse, so we need to make that really clear. And I'm sure feels a degree of sort of injustice himself. But the main issue here is there are victims, survivors who were abused, that they won't get justice in the sense of the perpetrator being brought to justice. But I think they need to have a sense that the church really takes responsibility for that. So it's a very serious matter, and I think it is probably a matter where he needs to consider his position, yeah.
He reportedly was considering his position when this report came out last week, which basically decided that he, hadn't really followed up properly and rigorously enough about these reports in 2013. There's no suggestion that he was involved in a cover-up, that he simply didn't look into it and follow up, and perhaps he could have stopped some of that abuse had he acted more swiftly. What's your own view? Because there is also a school of thought that this is a man who has enemies within the General Synod, not least over the toxic issue within the Church of gay marriage, and also on his outspoken opinions on Rwanda as well. Could there perhaps be moves, people wanting his job?
Well, none of that counts. What counts is the protection of these children. And if he fails to act on that front, then he is as guilty as sin.
Well, yeah, and obviously they can't be protected now in that sense. But I think it's owning it is the point. It's not as good as perhaps it could be because the perpetrator is not still alive. But there is a sense of corporate responsibility. I would not also agree with Justin Welby on many moral issues and theological issues. And I think there probably are other reasons why it would be good if he resigned for his kind of inconsistency to do with the Bible and the gospel and what the purpose of the Church of England is. So I'm being careful not to sort of jump on his grave, as it were, because I think you're right in the question. There are factions who, for all kinds of reasons, might want to get rid of him. But I think leaving that all aside, I think the evidence is mounting for a degree of responsibility from him and from others. I think also there's a whole cultural issue to think about, to say, what is the Church of England for? What is the Church of England about? Is there a culture of complacency, or has it just become a big political organisation that's kind of beyond accountability and has lost its way a bit?
Well, we've got Dennis McShane, former politician, here in the studio today to talk about a few matters. And Dennis, I just wonder, have you got a view on this one and Welby's position?
Indeed, and if you go back to GBNews Thursday last, I said he should resign. It was about the last final story of David Lammy and all that rubbish there. And I said, look, this is infinitely more serious. Welby should resign. And I'm very glad by yesterday the BBC had caught up with me in GB News.
Yeah. And why do you think he hasn't acted?
Look, all churches, I mean, the Catholic Church, don't even go there. Don't even go to my Catholic school where we were beaten. Punishment by the monks was something called pants down. You had to bend over and drop your underpants. And then they started beating you. It was not very pleasant. And then you now realise that was child abuse. I pulled up my pants and sort of didn't really feel very impressed by those priests ever again. But they protected the abbot there for a number of years. He was finally uncovered in Kosovo. And the British ambassador there told me when the police caught up with him, when he went down there, the ambassador as well, they found 300,000 euros there given to him by the Vatican, again, so he could live comfortably in a remote village in Kosovo. So all churches are up to their necks in this.
In the Church of England, Archbishops of Canterbury are sort of forced to retire at 70. So Justin Welby would be due to retire next year. Do you see a scenario whereby the man who crowned the king, buried the Queen, might be able to be given a dignified, premature retirement to try and clear all of this up? And would that be the correct way of dealing with it? Or do you think he ought to resign in a sort of, in a sort of shameful situation?
Well, he should take responsibility for the failure of his actions. That's all. Just take responsibility. What message does it send to any other cleric who might be tempted? I say no more than that. And in other churches too. Just read the Catholic press about what's going on in the Catholic Church when the head of the Church of England just ignores all this.
Yeah, to be clear, John Smith wasn't a cleric. He was a QC who was involved in Christian summer camps and involved in a number of
QCs, yes, they're wonderful people.
I'm just saying, it's not, when you talk about other clerics being tempted, it wasn't anyone within the church who committed this horrendous abuse.
Well, Dennis, thanks for your view and your opinion. Graham, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for what you've had to say as well. We should say, in response to the allegations, the Archbishop of Canterbury has said, I recognise the courage of those victims, including those related to John Smith, who have come forward and relived their trauma through contributing to this review. I had no idea or suspicion of this abuse before 2013, which is a long time ago.
Nevertheless, the review is clear that I personally failed to ensure that after disclosure in 2013, the awful tragedy was energetically investigated. Since that time, the way in which the Church of England engages with victims and survivors has changed beyond recognition.
Now, here, of course, we'd love to know what you've got to say and what do you think about things. So have your say. Our poll of the day today, we're asking, should the Archbishop of Canterbury step down? We'll bring you the results of that throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Final result, Martin Daubney's show, 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, and for all our latest polls, news and how to vote, you need to go to gbnews.com/poll.
The former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has hit out at the government's changes to the inheritance tax rates for farms.
In an exclusive interview with GB News, he's called the changes absolutely mad.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. You know, we are struggling. I mean,
not the protest. I'm assuming the inheritance.
No, the inheritance tax thing. You know, it is. We're struggling to keep people on the land to make sure that farmers are incentivised to hand over their business to their descendants. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
And those comments come ahead of 2 planned protests in Westminster next week. Over 10,000 farmers are expected to turn up.
Well, our reporter Anna Riley has been speaking to a farmer in East Yorkshire who could be left paying a £600,000 inheritance tax bill under the new changes.
Farming is a family affair for Steve Ridsdale. He lives on this 260-acre farm in East Yorkshire with his wife and son. It's owned by his 81-year-old father, Terry. When he passes the farm on, the changes to agricultural relief means that Steve will face an inheritance tax bill of up to £600,000.
We've got 10 years to pay that tax, but if the farm doesn't make enough margin to pay the tax, so we would have to sell. I'm not sleeping. I feel like I've worked all my life and everything I've ever earned is going to have to go on tax because of my dad's age and because we're unlikely to be able to get life insurance for him. And if we can get life insurance, the premium will be horrendous.
The farm's been in the family for generations, but now owner Terry Ridsdale fears for its future.
We came here in 1960, and it's been our lifetime, looking after stock, our own cattle and now these bed and breakfast ones, and working the land. It could all go now with this new budget. It's a nice life, really, that's working outside all the time. But will the younger generation want to continue? My grandchildren? Doubtful.
Along with working on the farm, Steve's the chair of the British Farming Union. He says farmers will take action if the government doesn't rethink changes to inheritance tax.
Some of them are saying, well, we're going to have to push back at this and we're not going to cooperate. And they're starting to say, well, are we going to take the sewage sludge? Something like 85% of all the sewage solids go back to farmland. So farmers are saying, well, if you're not going to help us, we're not going to help you. And I can see that that is only going to get worse, to be honest, because, it's our livelihoods.
The Prime Minister said that the budget has put £5 billion into farming over the next 2 years. Keir Starmer has also stressed that the vast majority of farmers won't be affected by changes to inheritance tax. But this is cold comfort to farmers like Steve, who risk losing their livelihoods. Anna Riley, GB News.
Let's cross live now to Emily Carver. Emily's on a farm in Exmoor in North Devon. Tell us more, Emily.
Good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Yes, I've been up at the crack of dawn, or indeed before the crack of dawn, to get here to this beautiful 160-acre farm in Devon in the southwest of England. And I am joined by this lovely bunch of heifers, very beautiful. I'm here for their breakfast time. But I'm also going to speak to James Wright, who is the farmer here. James, thank you very much indeed. Now, I want to, of course, know how these tax changes are going to impact you and other farmers in the area, but also we're here to find out what a day in the life of a farmer is actually like. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm not used to being in a farm. I don't know what graft goes into a day in the farm. It does look a bit tricky. Tell me, what are we going to be doing today?
Well, we're going to go feed the cows in a minute, and then we're going to go and scrape up some poo, and then we go and find the sheep, and I think we're going to go get some eggs for our breakfast as well.
Eggs for breakfast, fantastic stuff. Now, what is the hardest thing about being a farmer?
It's just the uncertainty. I mean, we're here today and it's lovely weather, or it will be in a little bit, but it could be pouring with rain. Every day is different, and I think that's what makes it difficult.
And this is a 160-acre farm. How do you look after so much land?
Well, you get up very early in the morning and you go to bed quite late, and you rely on the goodwill of neighbours, probably is the best way to describe it.
And just a quick question, what's your favourite animal in your farm?
Oh, it's got to be the cows.
It's got to be the cows. I think I agree. So yes, we're going to be here all morning, all afternoon, all day, bringing you a GB News farming special to try and understand the voices in our rural communities and how these tax changes might impact them and their future for generations to come. Back to you.
Stood Emily, thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's get the thoughts in the studio of the former Labour Minister for Europe, Dennis McShane. Look, this is being described by many as a divisive and nasty tax move by the Chancellor, who has very little understanding of the countryside. I mean, how can you defend it when we're talking about something like I can't remember what my stat was now, I've lost it. Never mind. Anyway, how could you defend it? And I'll come back to that.
First point is, everyone gets obsessed with the headline budget statement by the Chancellor. I sat through 18 of them, and then when I was in opposition, when the Tories were running the show, I was on the Finance Committee, which was the Committee of the House of Commons, all members, all parties represented, and they go through the budget line by line by line by line, and there can be changes. Now, I've just checked this British Farmers Union, the chap you had on earlier. You can't find any details about it, how many members it's got, what it does. There's a National Farmers Union with 55,000 members. That's the representative body, and it's very upset. All I'd say is there are many people, when I die, and it's not that far off, my inheritance tax will be much, much greater.
Yes, they do get better leniency, fair enough. But I mean, what's going to happen to the countryside if we lose this 5 million acres of British countryside? We're hearing from the voice of farmers, their descendants simply cannot afford the tax bill.
I do remember them marching not far from where I live in Pimlico against the fox hunting ban. And they said it was dreadful, and the Range Rovers were parked up, and they got out of their Gucci's and put on wellies. Not gentlemen like that, and said this is the end of farming. They opposed the national minimum wage. They said nothing about Brexit, though that has done huge damage. They can't hire now farm workers as once they did, and they're not part of the EU subsidy scheme, and the British government, any government, is much meaner than the European Union is. So to go back to the basics, you're husband and wife, both in their name, that's 2 million exempt from tax. And then if your house is also part of the farm, and you put that into the package, that's another $1 million that's exempt from inheritance tax. Then you've got 10 years to pay it. I mean, I know a lot of small businessmen who would love to have 10 years in which they could pay off the tax they owe. So I'm all for looking at it and finding certain analysis, but let's just stop. I mean, Jim, the guy who runs Dyson, well, I've forgotten his name.
James Dyson.
He buys, invented Dyson, he buys 30,000 acres of farm just for tax reasons.
No, but I think, and this is a point that Jeremy Clarkson has been really, really strong on, is that this policy is actually not going after those super wealthy landowners like him, like James Dyson, who've been using this as a loophole to pass on their huge wealth to their children without having to pay tax. Actually, what it's going to do is affect those farmers in the middle who have frankly been completely shafted and whose descendants cannot afford the sort of bill that this is going to be imposing on them. And it's all just to raise $520 million a year by 2030, which is peanuts.
No, on that point, I completely agree with you that it's very funny to have Boris Johnson there. He bequeathed, the disaster of the British economy, the disaster of Liz Truss, and the fact there's no money coming into the coffers. And I don't quite know what Labour's meant to do. We want hospitals, don't we? Theresa May took 20,000 police off the streets when she was Home Secretary. We need them back.
But we also need food, and we also need farmers to be thriving and to be viable.
All of those things, but everybody, I mean, I'm sure I'd thrive if I didn't pay the tax that I pay, or thrive a bit better, leave a bit more for my children, have more to give my children now. So there are a lot of other experts on the other side of the equation. I mean, I'm following this not as an expert. I'm a townie. I grew up in London. I'm a Londoner. But experts, including farmers, who say, look, some of this has been got up. It's perfectly reasonable. It used to be trade unions. Do you remember when they used to dictate to governments? Now it seems to be farmers. I'm sure they're completely sincere, and good luck with their march and their protest.
But what's perfectly reasonable about diminishing a business, which is a farm and a family business, and supervising over the fact that these are going to go to big multinational companies, farms are going to get bigger and bigger, and the family aspect of it goes out? Who does it benefit whittling down a family farm?
Oh, I would love the assumption that will happen, but there seems to be an awful lot of people who want to buy agricultural land, and there are people who do want to be farmers. I mean, it's a hard life, indeed, but it is out in the open air, and you have a secured income. And, I mean, frankly, I want to see more shops in our high streets, but nobody's saying to Tesco's and Sainsbury's, you have destroyed high street shopping by forcing down prices, by relocating way outside of town, so you have to use gas-guzzling cars to get there to do your shopping. Now, maybe we could do some tax breaks that help small shopkeepers. That would be a nice change, wouldn't it?
OK. Dennis, got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Maybe we'll speak again later. Have your say, of course, by getting in touch with us. Let's get the weather update. Good morning, Alex Deakin.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day out there for most. It is a bit colder first thing this morning compared to recent mornings, and there are a few fog patches around too. Parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, some dense patches of fog to be aware of for your morning commute. It's not completely dry. A few showers just drifting in there to parts of Essex, Kent. We may even see one or two in the London area at times through the day today, but they should be fairly light and move through on the breeze. Bit of cloud over central and eastern England, but for many, for the west and north, it's dry, it's fine. Plenty of autumn sunshine, except where that fog sticks, which will suppress the temperatures. For most, temperatures after that chilly start getting to about the average for the time of year, 9, 10, 11 Celsius. Feeling cooler, though, with this fairly brisk breeze across the far southeast, which will generate the odd shower, some for the coast of East Anglia as well. Quite a bit of fine and sunny weather for most, but that fog across Northern Ireland, even if it clears, could reform pretty quickly as we go through this evening. Much of Scotland having a dry and fine evening, but notice the cloud is increasing across the far northwest, so that cloud moving in across the Western Isles, bringing a few spots of rain before midnight. The showers in the southeast should tend to fizzle out as we go through the night, so most will become dry. Again, some fog, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, and across into parts of Wales. This kind of central zone. That's also where we're most likely to see a frost. Towns and cities holding up at 2 or 3 Celsius, but in rural spots we will be down to -2 or -3. So again, a frosty, foggy start in these central areas. A bit more cloud tomorrow over northern Scotland. So there'll be a little bit of patchy rain just trickling over the Highlands, clearing from the Western Isles. Perhaps not as many showers tomorrow across the southeast. So for much of England and Wales, it's a dry, fine and sunny day. Again, temperatures 10, 11, 12 degrees, but lower if those fog patches stick again.
Ooh, a chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, we are off to Azerbaijan. Keir Starmer's been speaking there at COP29. We'll have all the latest in just a moment.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry,
Tonight is electric.
As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No, we didn't. I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past.
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, I think he just felt guilty the whole entire time, and he put that on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually met in a very similar way. So my stepdad was texting my mum. He'd basically stolen the number off of a friend because the friend had met my mum in Blackpool, and they were texting for like 6 months. They'd never met. So that premise of how they got together and the marriage that they had was stunning. And to build a relationship not based on looks before you met, I just found that just incredible.
So do you believe in that concept? Is it lust or love at first sight?
It's weird.
It's a bit of both.
I think, it's definitely a bit of both. And I always say, as you get older, your looks will change, but your personality will stay the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sir Keir Starmer set to unveil a new ambitious climate target, committing Britain to an 81% reduction in emissions by 2035.
Well, that's as he attends the United Nations annual climate conference in Azerbaijan.
But key leaders, including Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, Olaf Scholz and Ursula von der Leyen, are not there. One man who is in attendance is our political editor, Christopher Hope. So let's hear from him. Christopher, good morning to you.
Morning, Eamonn. Morning, Isabel. Yeah, welcome to Baku, Azerbaijan, where 96 heads of delegations, G7 leaders, as you said just then, only him and Giorgia Meloni from the top 7 most developed nations are here. They are discussing COP finance, getting more private companies to try and work with governments to try and cut emissions. We will hear some big news, I think, today from Sir Keir Starmer. He'll set out plans to cut emissions by a far bigger target than before, 81%, or 81% down. He knows it's going to be difficult to
That line is sorted for later conversations with Christopher Hope, but he was talking about announcements that we are expecting from the Prime Minister at COP on 81% reduction in emissions by 2035. Interestingly, UAE, who hosted the same conference last year, just pledged a 47% reduction in emissions by 2035, and Brazil, who's next year's host of COP, have just committed to cutting emissions by 67%. We're going quite a bit further than that if Christopher is to be believed. received with 81%. We'll be keeping our eyes on that. It's a 2-week conference, but as you were saying, lots of wranglings over the next few weeks about how exactly they're going to pay for those vulnerable countries to withstand the expected increase in this wild and extreme weather. Now that I think the figure was 1.5 degrees is the temperature now since warmer since pre-industrial revolution periods. This year will be an average of 1.5 degrees warmer. So what does that mean? It means an increase in wild weather.
Well, what it means is, what does any of it mean? Because nobody's turned up to their conference. Keir Starmer's about the most famous name there. And, you know, if no one else is going to be bothered, the big nations, what is the point of going ahead? But yet we in this country are fanatical about adhering to things that COP passes. And no one else seems to have the same enthusiasm.
Well, he sees it as an opportunity, I suppose, doesn't he? And he's probably pledging this big green agenda, trying to boost the economy based on getting that head start and trying to lead the way in the move away from fossil fuels. We will put all of that to Christopher Hope when we get a chance a little bit later on.
It's funny, he sees it as boosting the economy, where everybody else sees it as draining the economy. But your views, very welcome, have your say. How would you like to win Christmas on us this year? Here's how. Papers coming your way very, very shortly, but up next it's the sport with Paul Coit.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Train services between Selby and Doncaster are diverting via Goole again today because of a points failure. Buses are replacing trains between Doncaster and Howden. Buses also replace trains between Hensford and Rugeley Trent Valley again today because of overhead line problems. There's a reduced service on the Heathrow Express with some cancelled Great Western Rail services between Paddington and Slough because of a faulty rail. On the M26 in Kent, delays building on the westbound approach to the M25 because of roadworks. In Wiltshire, the A360 is blocked where there's a fire on Northgate Street in Devizes. The M5 in Somerset is closed each way between junctions 24 and 25, between Bridgewater South and Taunton after an accident late last night. And in Devon, the A361 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident at South Molton. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Australian chef David Thompson is opening a new restaurant, Long Chim. The name, which translates roughly as come and try, already has locations in Sydney, Perth and Dubai, and previously operated in Melbourne and Singapore. It marks a return to London for Thompson, whose Belgravia haunt Naarm closed in 2012. But that earned him accolades, including, in 2002, the first Michelin star awarded to a Thai restaurant. So you've mentioned Bangkok there. What is your love for Thai food? Describe to us why you think Thai food is such a great cuisine.
It's endlessly complex and satisfying. It just resonates on the palate. For me, as a cook, it offers a challenge. And the way that you cook it is you chase taste. You don't follow a recipe, you follow your sense of taste. And so with all these dishes that you'll taste today, but also in the restaurant that we're opening, it's all about a sequence of taste and seasoning that has some balance.
What is this dish?
This is something called gengari gung, which is an aromatic curry of prawns.
Lovely looking prawns, yes.
They're not too bad. And it's with something strange called water bamboo, which we found up in Chinatown just the other day. And it's a perfect accompaniment. I'll just take a little.
Yes. Describe that perfect accompaniment to me again. Water
bamboo.
What is it? Water bamboo, yeah.
And you would not know of it, because I didn't know of it that much either. And it tastes like a little bit of like young coconut meat. So it's perfect with these prawns and this curry. And what you need to have with this curry, because this is the way that Thai food works, an interplay of flavours. This little cucumber salad on the side, and that helps to bring out the spice and the sweetness and the savoury quality.
I must say, all of this looks so lovely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Let's get Paul in, and we're going to deliberate on referees.
Yes, Premier League referee David Coote is in all sorts of trouble this morning. A video has emerged which has come out, and we're not even, this is not verified, by the way. And it's difficult to be able to say this is not verified, but it's not. But it appears to be David Coote, the Premier League referees.
So who is it? Is it you, artificial intelligence?
Well, you know what?
You doing it?
I tell you what, if that's artificial intelligence, it's very, very clever.
Yeah, I don't know why people keep saying it's not verified. It's him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just have a look. Well, let me give a little background. So this has come out. We expect that this is from over 4 years ago, and it seems that it's David Coote there with a couple of other fellas and having a real go at Liverpool. He says what he thinks about Jurgen Klopp, says what he thinks about Liverpool, about how they played, and there's a lot of swearing involved, which of course we've bleeped all the way through, but this is anyway some of the video.
What did you think of the Liverpool game earlier when you were fourth official?
Liverpool was
What do you think of Jurgen
absolutely.
What would you say? Why would you say that Jurgen Klopp was?
Aside from having a right pop at me when I ref them against Burnley in lockdown, then he accused me of lying, and then just had a right pop at me. And I've got no interest in speaking to someone who's arrogant.
Right. Well, so many more questions raised by that video than answers. Like, who's filming it?
Well, this is it. Who's filming it? If he's a friend of his, he's really sold him down the river, of course. And also, from what it appears like, it looks like we've all had a lovely time. We've had a few drinks. Yeah. We're going to film you. And there's a piece at the end where he says, you know, this can't go anywhere. This absolutely can't go anywhere.
Why let it be taped? You've got the former head of PGMOL, Keith Hackett. We're delighted to welcome you, Keith, this morning for your take on things. He does look, Keith, as if he was aware he was being taped, and why go down that road?
Well, I think it's just amazing. I think alcohol must come into this, and if Paul has rightly mentioned the risk of AI, but I just find it absolutely shocking. It's not good for officiating. You know, high levels of integrity, confidentiality, all are words that we think about in refereeing terms. The PGMOL have acted very quickly, although we learned that it came out 4 years ago under the management of Mike Riley. I don't know whether they saw it at that point. The reality is, he will be supported if he is a member of Unite, which most referees are. That union will support him, and the investigation will be thorough and very professional. I was the boss of the PGMOL when I had to suspend both when I had to suspend Mark Clattenburg and Mike Dean for aspects not involving any integrity issues, but we did that thoroughly. We investigated, and they were able to return to refereeing. I think this one is going to be, if proven, very severe for David Coote.
Absolutely. I mean, from what I see there, Keith, and he says what he thinks about Jurgen Klopp, which is one thing, and even what he's saying about Liverpool playing badly is another thing. But then you start getting the conspiracy theories and Liverpool fans that are saying, well, actually, look at when he officiated then. He should have given a penalty. He should have done this. And this is what then brings the whole refereeing into disrepute, and then it affects everybody, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, my inbox on emails from around the world, from referees who I know and referees I don't know, and officials in sport are shocked by this. It is huge because the Premier League is huge around the world, as we know, and therefore the investigation has to be thorough. If proven, the heights of stupidity here are beyond the imagination. I mean, you're right. I've already had Liverpool fans onto me about this particular issue because integrity and the use of VAR in recent years has put that into doubt. Fans are believing and questioning the integrity of our match officials. This does not help.
I don't know about you, Eamonn, and whether that's with you, Keith, as well, but whether I'm just naive to this situation, but I still do not believe that any referee that is worth anything, has gone through their entire career, is going to do anything stupidly and think, oh, I don't really like that team, I'm just going to not give them a penalty. I don't believe it. I honestly don't believe it.
Well, you've seen the video.
Yeah.
You still don't believe it?
No, I still don't believe that it would affect his refereeing. I don't.
Right. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's as Keith points out there, it's a very slippery slope. It's a dangerous road to go down, associating yourself. I mean, Jurgen Klopp can slag off whoever he wants and has done in the past, but it sort of can't be done the other way around, can it, Keith?
No, absolutely not, Eamonn. The comments or the beliefs that you have to keep to yourself. I mean, the old thing about officiating is when you step over that white line onto the green bit, you've got a blank piece of paper in front of you, no agendas. You just want to referee and take part in these terrific games. We're honoured to be able to walk out onto fields like Anfield and various other fields around the world. Look, this is beyond belief. I too thought AI immediately. Then I'm looking at it for about the fourth time. I find it unbelievable. And then I'm thinking, is alcohol playing a major part here?
Looks like it.
If it's proven,
that's the question.
It's Keith, the height of stupidity.
Well, thank you very much for your forthright opinions on all of that. We do appreciate your say, and we'll ask folk at home what do they think should happen next. Keith Hackett, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Paul Coyte, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
We've got to leave it there.
Yeah, let us know what you think at home in all of that as well. Also, are you trying to quit smoking? Because the NHS could soon be offering a pill which could help you give up. Find out more in just a moment.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Patrick Christys. This is GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, in the Mail, page 5, hard-pressed bosses already having to deal with deadlines, red tape and staff who won't actually come into the office over Christmas. And they're saying that Christmas parties this year are going to be as lame as ever because everyone's afraid of basically getting cancelled or misbehaving or getting sacked for their behaviour. Would you risk it, Trey, at Christmas?
Do you know, I've actually never had a normal job in my life, so I wouldn't last a second because I'm not very politically correct. But it must be horrendous, really, because rather than enjoying yourself, you're having to completely always censor yourself. And it might be the most innocent of stuff that's said to someone that they then take offence to, which means you're going to probably just keep your mouth shut, which doesn't sound like the best of parties, does it, really?
No. Tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not at work, so it's not an office issue if, you know, some banter and it's taken the wrong way. But still, it's still a work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. If HR shows up, it's a work party. It's a work event.
HR shows up, I'm gone.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And so even for us this year, first of all, it's the first year we're calling it a holiday party. I don't know how I felt about that.
Really? What, your company's doing that?
Yeah, they're calling it a holiday party.
Oh, no, well, no.
Yeah, I know. I voted against.
So they got rid of the word
Christmas.
Why?
Because we want to be inclusive.
How's it not inclusive to call it Christmas?
I know. Trust me.
Are you still going to go? I wouldn't bother going. I'd say no.
I am going to go, but I'm going to go dressed as Mrs. Claus, and it's going to be Christmassy, and I'm going to make sure that Christmas enters the door with me.
Yeah, you spread that Christian vibe.
100%. But outside of that, there is that element of HR showing up, and HR will be sober, and they've already prepped them to say, like, listen, this isn't your party. HR can have their party. This is your hangout.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's being PC.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello now, good morning and welcome to Claire Muldoon and Alex Armstrong. They've got the papers, the story that are catching their eyes. And Alex, the assisted dying bill, that's made many of the papers today.
Yeah, this is quite a huge bill, so to speak. It changes a lot about how we view our health in our later years. And of course, now we know what the bill might look like. So there's some guardrails here, and I think it'd be useful for the audience to know what these guardrails might be. One, they start off by saying patients must be 18 or over and have a mental capacity to make a choice about their end of life, and must be terminally ill and expected to die within 6 months. They must express a clear, settled and informed declaration twice. There must be 2 independent doctors. The application must be approved by a High Court judge. Medicine cannot be self-administered, and doctors
must be self-administered.
Cannot be self-administered. Cannot be self-administered, and doctors will be banned from assisting. Coercion of a patient would be a criminal offence punishable by up to 14 years in prison. So they're saying these are really robust rules. They're saying they're really robust. I'll give you my opinion on this. I'm against this. I'm against this because we have palliative care, and there's many doctors who say we already have assisted dying. We already have this. And what this is assisted suicide. And that's what they're saying. I am of the view that this could be a very slippery slope. I really do worry about this. And as we spoke about this on the show before, I think it puts a lot of pressure on elderly people, a lot of pressure on sick people. I do think there's something to be said about people having the right to die. But I really worry about this being a slippery slope downwards.
Well, I think we only have to look at Canada to find out the extent to which these parameters can actually be pulled, pushed and manipulated. 4% of deaths in Canada are under assisted suicide. And there's mental illness that one patient had presented with, and, you know, she was allowed to euthanise herself. All these, it's a very dark time in history, and I want to be the right side of history, and I know you're for it, Eamonn, but I'm completely and utterly against it.
And a twist about it. I mean, you know, people are in terrible pain, no matter if there's a pathway or not. Why can't they just put an end to it?
Why should they?
Why should they not?
Because they should. It's
their body, their pain, their experience.
Come on, Eamonn. It's not just those that are in chronic pain. It's the other people, the vulnerable, and those that will be manipulated, that I think the law has to safeguard and protect. It's all very well if you are of sound mind and everything else and you want to do this, then I'm sure you will find a way to do it.
I think anybody who's experienced pain, really bad pain over a long period of time, it will be obvious to them what the right thing is to do. And I think, who the heck are we to be telling them what way to proceed?
What I think would be a really good way to do this, and I think there are ways that you can deliver this bill that's a little bit more sensible, and I think what I would like to see is this be a 2/3 majority in the House of Commons, something that is really robust, that we can't keep changing the laws. What I don't want is politicians getting involved in your life too much. I don't like that. I don't like them telling you how to be all the time. So I would like there to be really robust measures in Parliament for me to be really comfortable with this bill. That's only when I think I'll accept it. I think if politicians on a majority, for example, like that we have today, a simple majority, changing the laws around assisted dying, which may slip over time, would be where my concern is. I completely do agree with you, though, Eamonn, that when people are in pain and they feel like they can't go on anymore, there's something to be said about that, and I do feel so deeply sorry for those people.
We also have to bear in mind that what the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has said, and he just doesn't think that the NHS is in a position to be able to
They're not equipped to deal with it.
And he fears that inadequacies within palliative care will encourage people to go down this road, which is a terrible reason to end your life.
Yes.
You know, you should be able to get top-level palliative care in this country.
Exactly. And the other concerns are, of course, that they'll be shopping for doctors to get the right decision. People, if they're that vulnerable and they're that weak and they're that much in pain, then how on earth can they have full mental capacity to make a full and reasoned and frank decision? I don't think that they can. And it's the openness to coercion as well, and the fact that this bill is being rushed through Parliament so quickly, and it's going to be read, I think, on Thursday and then put to the Commons just before Christmas.
It's not rushed through. People have been talking about this for years and years and years. We know the arguments that there are to do, and you'll be there on one side or the other. So that's what our poll of the day should have been today.
Yeah, that'd be a really good poll. Well, just we're talking about polling because MPs have got to decide on this, and I believe it's going to be a free vote. I believe, and the Guardian are reporting that there's at least 100 Labour MPs who remain undecided, and significant numbers on both sides are not sure yet. So it is not a guarantee that this bill will go through.
Yeah. Claire, tell us about this pill which could stop out smoking.
Do you know, if there was any more pills that are available to people in this world, I mean, really?
Yeah.
There's a pill now that the NHS are going to roll out to prevent 95,000 or 9,500 deaths from cancer, which is the biggest concern, biggest killer of people who smoke. Now, I'm sorry, what is wrong with willpower? What is wrong with people trying to stop smoking, the usual routes, etc., etc.? Because I'll tell you, if you smoke, it's going to take more than a pill to stop it.
If it helps people, though?
Oh, but Isabel, come on, do we have to keep giving people pills or
clearly,
shots of Ozempic?
So much of these things are addictive. You know, we know that smoking's addictive. We know that often drinking's addictive. We know that there are lots of problems with eating are around addictive behaviours. If there's medication that can make people
treat the addiction. Treat the addiction.
Fine, but I mean,
but don't keep giving people pills to do things. I don't think it's going to stub it out.
It certainly benefits Big Pharma, doesn't it?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But this company are actually based in the UK. It's Teva UK, who have produced and done all the research for it and are now rolling it out on the NHS. Again, it's another cost to the NHS for people not being able to deal with their addictions and have enough willpower either not to eat, not to drink or not to smoke.
Alex, to work from home means you're going to sleep more. People who work from home sleep more and put in fewer hours than those going into the office.
It's no surprise, is it?
I can't see why anybody would be amazed by this at all.
It's a really non-story, but it's interesting nonetheless. So just some interesting numbers here. Work from home has dropped from 37% to 13% over the last couple of years.
Still too high.
Very, yeah. But yes, you're right. It's not a lot of news here, really. People who work remotely also work 10 minutes less, supposedly. 10 minutes. Whoa, big news.
How do they measure that?
I have no idea. They must poll them. They exercise 15 minutes more. But what I think people will be interested in hearing is that if you're in senior management, you are 45% more likely to work from home than the workers are.
No way.
This is like a bit of a two-tier working system, it seems, where if you're the one in charge, you might just take the day working from home because no one can tell you what to do, as opposed to 13% of all workers who are forced to work from home.
Well, if you are working from home, you probably won't have started yet.
Yeah.
But
must have been asleep because there's no commute
Yes,
involved. You don't need to be at your desk for another hour or two.
A good day. We'll give you the weather forecast and we'll be back right after this.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day out there for most. It is a bit colder first thing this morning compared to recent mornings, and there are a few fog patches around too. Parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, some dense patches of fog to be aware of for your morning commute. It's not completely dry. A few showers just drifting in there to parts of Essex, Kent. We may even see one or two in the London area at times through the day today, but they should be fairly light and move through on the breeze. Bit of cloud over central and eastern England, but for many, further west and north, it's dry, it's fine. Plenty of autumn sunshine, except where that fog sticks, which will suppress the temperatures. For most temperatures, after that chilly start, getting to about the average for the time of year, 9, 10, 11 Celsius. Feeling cooler, though, with this fairly brisk breeze across the far southeast, which will generate the odd shower, some for the coast of East Anglia as well. Quite a bit of fine and sunny weather for most, but that fog across Northern Ireland, even if it clears, could reform pretty quickly as we go through this evening. Much of Scotland having a dry and fine evening, but notice the cloud is increasing across the far northwest, so that cloud moving in across the Western Isles, bringing a few spots of rain before midnight. The showers in the southeast should tend to fizzle out as we go through the night, so most will become dry. Again, some fog, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, and across into parts of Wales, this kind of central zone. That's also where we're most likely to see a frost. Towns and cities holding up at 2 or 3 Celsius, but in rural spots we will be down to -2 or -3. So again, a frosty, foggy start in these central areas. A bit more cloud tomorrow over northern Scotland. So there'll be a little bit of patchy rain just trickling over the Highlands, clearing from the Western Isles. Perhaps not as many showers tomorrow across the southeast. So for much of England and Wales, it's a dry, fine and sunny day. Again, temperatures 10, 11, 12 degrees, but lower if those fog patches stick again.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Train services between Selby and Doncaster are diverting via Goole again today because of a points failure, with buses running between Doncaster and Howden. Buses also replaced trains between Hensford and Rugeley Trent Valley because of overhead line problems. In Suffolk, there's a report of an accident on the A12 northbound at Martlesham. The reduced Heathrow Express train service running into and out of Paddington Station in London because of a track fault, with some cancelled Great Western services between Paddington and Slough. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes and queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In Wiltshire, the A360 is blocked along Northgate Street in Devizes, where they're dealing with a fire at a takeaway. The M5 in Somerset's closed each way between junctions 24 and 25, between Bridgewater South and Taunton after an accident last night. And in Devon, the A361 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident at South Molton. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Fury on family farms.
Farmers right across the country are gearing up to protest against the government's inheritance tax raid on the agricultural sector.
This comes as the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson criticises the government's policy.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
Our presenter Emily Carver, live from a farm on Exmoor.
I'll be here on Fernham Farm in North Devon to find out exactly how these tax changes are going to be impacting family farms.
Pressure is mounting on the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, to resign over his handling of a child abuse scandal involving the most prolific serial abuser in the Church of England.
The American envoy vows to fight climate change despite Donald Trump's recent victory as the COP29 climate conference continues.
And if you're still looking for the perfect Christmas present, we'll be joined by EastEnders star Lacey Turner to reveal her perfect picks.
Fears grow that supermarket prices could increase following the government's national insurance tax raid on businesses. We're asking, is this an immoral move?
And in the sport, Premier League referee David Coote is in all sorts of trouble this morning. Gary Lineker is set to leave match of the day, but not for a while, and 8 players pull out of the England squad.
It's a bit colder out there this morning, and there are some fog patches around as well. But for many, it'll be a fine autumn day. Join me later for a full forecast.
Hello there, good morning to you on this Tuesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
So today we have a top-flight referee saying that the referee scandal the David Coote suspension and whatever, alcohol could have been involved.
Well, it looks... There's the video, isn't there, of David Coote, which was allegedly filmed out 4 years ago, and it's still not confirmed that it's him. Well, it blooming looks like him, doesn't it? I mean, it'd be some AI not to be him, but it's not actually verified that it is him.
No.
So there he is, and it looks like he's there with friends, having a few drinks, and then they ask him questions about what he thinks about Liverpool, what he thinks about Jurgen Klopp. And for a referee to say what he thinks is probably not a good thing, because then everybody starts going, well, hang on. You made that decision against Liverpool. You did that against Liverpool. So, therefore, it's all corrupt. And so it's a whole can of worms that's been opened now.
Yeah.
Really is.
I do find it very humorous nowadays where we have to double and triple and ratify things for lawyers. And, you know, you see someone beating the head of someone else or shooting them dead or something, and they say, he allegedly hit him. You know, you think, no, he did hit him.
I know, but, you know, in the era of AI, I suppose it's more important than ever. When you see some of these deep fakes, whatever they might be, whether you've seen the Pope drowning a goat or something, you know, it's just...
That was a hell of a video, by the way, that one.
I'm just saying, you see all sorts of crazy things.
Is there a video of the Pope drowning the goat?
But, you know,
I thought it was a goat drowning the Pope. I always got those mixed up.
Doing all sorts of things. So I suppose you do need to have that breathing space to confirm that these are legitimate pictures when it's such a sort of pivotal and, you know, career-ending...
Well, I do want to make sure... You are Eamonn Holmes, aren't you? Is it confirmed that you are? I'm sorry for moving. I'm sorry I had over, but I just want to make sure.
When will you get it?
When will you get it? When will you get it? He'll be getting it in 20 minutes' time. We'll get more stuff on what you're saying.
OK.
Paul, thank you.
Right, we start this hour with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, facing increased pressure to stand down over his failure to address a child abuse scandal.
Now, an independent report exposed his failure to act on allegations involving the barrister John Smith, who's been one of the Church's most prolific abusers.
Well, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has refused to back the Archbishop of Canterbury, stating the issue was a matter for the Church. Earlier, we spoke to the director of Affinity Gospel Churches in Partnership, Graham Nichols.
At a personal level, he was not guilty of abuse, so we need to make that really clear. And you know, I'm sure feels a degree of sort of injustice himself. But the main issue here is there are victims, survivors who were abused. That they won't get justice in the sense of the perpetrator being brought to justice. But I think they need to have a sense that the Church really takes responsibility for that. So it's a very serious matter, and I think it is probably a matter where he needs to consider his position,
He reportedly was considering his position when this report came out last week, which basically decided that he, you know, hadn't really followed up properly and rigorously enough about these reports in 2013. There's no suggestion that he was involved in a cover-up, that he simply didn't look into it and follow up, and perhaps he could have stopped some of that abuse had he acted more swiftly. What's your own view? Because there is also a school of thought that this is a man who has enemies within the General Synod, not least over the toxic issue within the Church of gay marriage, and also on his outspoken opinions on Rwanda as well. You know, could there perhaps be moves, people wanting his job?
Well, none of that counts. What counts is the protection of these children. And if he fails to act on that front, then he is as guilty as sin.
Well, yeah, and obviously they can't be protected now in that sense. But I think it's owning it is the point. It's not as good as perhaps it could be because the perpetrator is not still alive. But there is a sense of corporate responsibility. I would not also agree with Justin Welby on many moral issues and theological issues. And I think there probably are other reasons why it would be good if he resigned for his kind of inconsistency to do with the Bible and the gospel and what the purpose of the Church of England is. So I'm being careful not to sort of jump on his grave, as it were, because I think you're right in the question. There are factions who, for all kinds of reasons, might want to get rid of him. But I think leaving that all aside, I think the evidence is mounting for a degree of responsibility from him and from others. I think also there's a whole cultural issue to think about, to say, what is the Church of England for? What is the Church of England about? Is there a culture of complacency, or has it just become a big political organisation?
So what is the Archbishop saying about all of this? Well, in a statement released last night, he said, I recognise the courage of those victims, including those related to John Smith, who've come forward and relived their trauma through contributing to this review. I had no idea or suspicion of this abuse before 2013.
Nevertheless, he goes on, the review is clear that I personally failed to ensure that after disclosure in 2013, the awful tragedy was energetically investigated. Since that time, the way in which the Church of England engages with victims and survivors has changed beyond recognition.
So what do you think about all this? We've been running our poll of the day. Today we're asking, should the Archbishop of Canterbury step down? We'll be bringing you those results as they develop throughout the programme today. Final result in Martin Daubney's show from 3 p.m.
And for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, you just need to go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK, the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has set out at the government's changes to the inheritance tax rate for farms.
In an exclusive interview with GB News, he's called the changes absolutely mad.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. You know, we are struggling. I mean,
not the protest. I'm assuming the inheritance.
No, the inheritance tax thing. You know, it is. We're struggling to keep people on the land, to make sure that farmers are incentivised to hand over their business to their descendants. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
Now, these comments come ahead of 2 planned protests in Westminster next week, where over 10,000 farmers are expected to attend.
Well, let's cross live to Emily Carver, who is live all day for us at a farm on Exmoor in North Devon. Good morning to you, Emily. Not only are you giving us an insight into what it's like a day in the life of a farmer, but you can explain to us just why there is this sense of betrayal within the farming community over this policy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Izzy and Eamonn. Yes, I'm here at this beautiful farm, 160 acres here in North Devon. It's an absolutely beautiful landscape. As you can see, the sun has just risen, or at least it's starting to, and lightness is upon us. I'm here with James Wright, who's the farmer at this farm, and he has deep concerns about the impact these tax changes could have on family farms here in this area. Later on in the day, I'm going to be speaking to several farmers to get their individual perspectives on how these tax changes, how this death tax could impact farmers, and also, more seriously, our food security in this country, as well as rural culture, which is so important to so many people. Anyway, I've arrived at a tractor to see and speak to James Wright, who is the farmer here. There we go. Look, I'm getting used to it. I'm going to just take a seat here. James, just on the serious point of these changes to taxes that Rachel Reeves announced in the budget, what do you suspect the impact of that is going to be?
Well, I mean, obviously the big one is the change in inheritance tax. And, you know, that means the majority of family farms, they'll have to sell when it comes to passing it between generations. But it's not just that. It was a very un-farmer-friendly budget. There were changes to things like VAT rules that impact farmers. They're reducing the amount of money that farmers get from the government as well. And really, it could quite well be the end of family farming in the UK.
Well, because ministers continue to insist, don't they, that this will only impact the very few, the most wealthy farmers in this country, and they want to prevent people just using land to, you know, get around inheritance tax. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, they've got their sums wrong. I mean, this farm is 160 acres, but it's worth well over the threshold that inheritance tax would have to be paid. And frankly, in my lifetime, we will not make that much money to be able to pay it. And 70% of the UK is farmed. The majority of that is done by family farms. Actually, there are very few large estates, and they'll dodge the tax anyway because they've got the money. It's the family farmers like me who'll lose out, and that's the real worry.
Yeah, working people here in rural communities who graft all day. I'm going to be learning what it's like to actually be a farmer, being a city person myself, finding out what goes into it. We've already had a very, very early start. I want to know, are you going to be joining the hundreds, if not thousands, of farmers descending on the capital to take the fight to the government?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be there on next Tuesday. There'll be people up and down the country, not just farmers, but, you know, rural tradesmen, people that work in the rural community will be there as well. it's really important that we share with Labour that we're not happy and that this is not the way to treat the countryside.
And what will your message be precisely to the government if you had to ask them one thing? What do you reckon that would be?
Well, the change in agricultural property relief generates £520 million. Why don't you give a little bit less to the train drivers and save family farms?
OK, well, a little bit less to the train drivers, more to the family farms. So how do we get this going then?
Well, if we turn it on and shut the door.
Oh, shut the door, sorry. Right, we're away. We're away, Eamonn and Isabel. We'll catch up with you a little later on the show while I find out what it's actually like on a farm.
Buckle
Back
up.
to you.
It looks absolutely beautiful. What a lifestyle it is. But these farmers, you know, hardly ever break even. Let's get the thoughts and analysis of the former Labour Minister for Europe, Dennis McShane, who I have to say, you know, you were an urban MP, you live in London. Based on your comments last hour, a lot of our audience pointing out you're not the most in touch with countryside issues. Are you not moved by these gut-wrenching stories of how people will have to sell up their farms and there's no way that they can afford these bills?
Any tax, any change in tax affects people. I would love not to have to pay any tax on what my meagre worth will be when I die. I've got 4 grandchildren. I'd like to pass it all on to them, but I can't. And if you've got 160 acres and £11,000 per acre, I can't do the sums, Eamonn, perhaps, or Isabel, perhaps you can. The idea that you shouldn't pay your dime to the country, you get £1 million if you're the male farmer, if you're in a joint farm with your wife, that's often the case, another £1 million for her, another £1 million, all tax-free, if your house in which you live is part officially of the farm, and you can pay it over 10 years. I think most people in Britain would die, and most small businessmen would die to have 10 years.
Do you disregard then all these stories of people saying that they just simply won't, you know, the threshold is too low, I should say, and that they would just lose their family farm?
I'm very, very unhappy.
You know,
There's a great confusion with budgets. People think that the statement by the Chancellor is that that's it. It's done and dusted, and you just have to live with it. Now, I served on the Finance Committee when I was in opposition in the 1990s, and the Finance Committee goes through, or cross-party, line by line, comma by comma, hearing pitches from all the different organisations that are affected by taxes. So this can be altered, and what I would urge farmers to do is to go and find, to be honest, it's a Labour majority government with hardly any Tory MPs left, as we know. Talk to local MPs, make that case, because what we're also finding out with this budget is it's not going to raise the money that is needed to fill the dreadful hole in the coffers left by Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. So you can have a big demo in London, yes. I remember a huge demo against fox hunting, you know, march through Hyde Park, and that was the end of the world. That destroys the countryside. Well, we've ended fox hunting. I think the countryside's still there, and I'm very confident, particularly if the farmers would stop selling their land to business financiers, the finance sector in the city, who are just trying to dodge taxes. So that's something the National Farmers Union should look at. In other countries, this tax dodge doesn't happen. In France, it doesn't happen, and in Germany. And the big thing that's hit farmers more than anything else is, I'm sorry, they left the European Union's Common Agricultural Policy, which gave the biggest subsidies in the world to farmers, allowed them to hire workers at a reasonable rate. That is what has seriously messed up farming, being outside the EU.
What about food security? All this fear that we have, you know, after the Ukraine war and things, that we just are not secure enough on that front.
You can do what you like on growing food. I mean, Britain for 1,000 years has had to import most of the food it makes. We were an industrial country, we're now a finance and service economy. We don't have the giant grain fields of Ukraine to grow
No, but I mean,
wheat.
this policy could affect 5 million acres of our countryside. We'll be in an even less sustainable position as a result.
Okay, that is the pitch made by the farming lobby. I don't.
Well, the farming lobby have said, hang on a minute, why don't you publish your full assessment of this policy, including its impact on national security? They dispute your figures, you dispute their figures. Why don't you put them all out?
Well, I'm not in charge. Sorry, I'm not in charge.
No, but I mean,
I would like. For heaven's sake.
You are defending the policy.
No, what we've had, especially in the last 20 years, is the Tories giving every tax break to their friends who run super big supermarkets. I mean, the boss of Tesco doubled his pay early this year from $4.5 million, which some people might think was a reasonable salary, to $9.9 million. And Tesco are moving in all the big supermarkets out of our high streets onto giant hypermarket industrial parks. You've got to use your car. You can't, if you don't have a car, it's very difficult to get to them. So let's defend the high street. And I think farmers, again, in other countries, connect with their local high streets and really promote local food shops serving local-made produce. I like to see a lot more of that personally, but honestly, all good luck. I mean, every tax rise messes up somebody's life, for sure. They've always messed up mine, but I don't have the clout of the national farm.
Dennis, we've got to leave it there. Thanks for outlining the argument, and folks at home listening and watching, remember, you can pick us up on your radio as well. We're doing very well on that front. Let us know your say, have your say on it, and we'll reflect that throughout the programme today.
We've got some breaking news to bring you now. In the last few moments, we've been hearing from the Office of National Statistics that the rate of unemployment has risen to 4.3%. That's in the 3 months to September, up from 4%. That's, as I say, from the Office for National Statistics. We're also hearing in the last few moments that UK average regular earnings growth fell to 4.8% in the 3 months to September. So that will be interesting for some reaction from the government a little bit later on. That's the first sort of reaction, really, temperature taken on the first few months of this Labour government.
Well, you saw the sun coming up in our farm in Devon. Now it's time for your weather. Let's see what the sun is doing in the rest of the country. Here's Alex.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day out there for most. It is a bit colder first thing this morning compared to recent mornings, and there are a few fog patches around too. Parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, some dense patches of fog to be aware of for your morning commute. It's not completely dry. A few showers just drifting in there to parts of Essex, Kent. We may even see one or two in the London area at times through the day today, but they should be fairly light and move through on the breeze. Bit of cloud over central and eastern England, but for many, further west and north, it's dry, it's fine. Plenty of autumn sunshine, except where that fog sticks, which will suppress the temperatures. For most temperatures, after that chilly start, getting to about the average for the time of year, 9, 10, 11 Celsius. Feeling cooler, though, with this fairly brisk breeze across the far southeast, which will generate the odd shower, some for the coast of East Anglia as well. Quite a bit of fine and sunny weather for most, but that fog across Northern Ireland, even if it clears, could reform pretty quickly as we go through this evening. Much of Scotland having a dry and fine evening, but notice the cloud is increasing across the far northwest, so that cloud moving in across the Western Isles, bringing a few spots of rain before midnight. The showers in the southeast should tend to fizzle out as we go through the night, so most will become dry. Again, some fog, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, and across into parts of Wales. This kind of central zone. That's also where we're most likely to see a frost. Towns and cities holding up at 2 or 3 Celsius, but in rural spots we will be down to -2 or -3. So again, a frosty, foggy start in these central areas. A bit more cloud tomorrow over northern Scotland. So there'll be a little bit of patchy rain just trickling over the Highlands, clearing from the Western Isles. Perhaps not as many showers tomorrow across the southeast. So for much of England and Wales, it's a dry, fine and sunny day. Again, temperatures 10, 11, 12 degrees, but lower if those fog patches stick again.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
No, celebrations. It's not just a tin of sweets. They're not a tin anymore. They're a plastic container, aren't they?
Paper tubs,
and we're going to
whatever.
talk about those very shortly. We're going to talk about the price of Cadbury's fingers.
Yeah, shocking.
Shocking.
Absolutely
if you only knew.
shocking. You might need £25,025 in order to afford them. Yeah, this is our
Just get
giveaway,
your box,
though. Just the one. We're also offering you some shopping vouchers and a GB News goodie bag if you haven't entered yet. Why not? Here are all the details.
Happy Christmas.
You could win Christmas on us this year. All magically delivered.
Every day is like Christmas for Isabel in here. So on my way in, my duty today was to buy her a little present, and what I bought her was some Cadbury's fingers.
That's very kind of you.
And they retailed at £1.49.
That was very generous of you.
I broke the bank
you
on that.
did. Well, I tell you what, les Cadbury fingers, as they're known in France, have disappeared from the shelves, so much so that a black market has emerged. And on Amazon, guess how much people are spending to buy this £1.49 box of Cadbury's fingers? Take a wild guess.
£3.
If I told you that it was retailing at 20 times this, the same price as a bottle of champagne, Moet Chandon,
20
46 quid people are paying for one of those.
46. I could flog this again for 46
get it on
quid.
Amazon.
But only in France.
Yeah, but you'd have to ship it to France, so, you know, factor in, I don't know, £3 postage charge. Quid's in.
Know, they're very tiny.
They're smaller than they used to be.
Smaller than they used to be.
And more expensive than ever by all.
They're just tiny. They're tiny inside.
Why do you think they've disappeared off the shelves in France?
I mean, they used to be. They're called fingers because they were about the size
what are they now?
of your
They're
finger.
more like baguettes, mini baguettes. Just pinky finger.
It's just tiny.
I'm open then. What are you doing?
Well, anyway.
If we've got any viewers in France, perhaps you might enlighten us as to why there is A, a run on them, and B, they've disappeared.
Why they've gone through the roof.
But other chocolate pinky fingers are available.
No, they're not.
Nothing else like it.
Who else has pinky fingers?
True, I don't know. Well, whilst we sample these delights, we'll have a quick break. Back in a moment.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here We do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. There are fears supermarkets will be hiking their prices as they're facing having to pay an extra £1 billion tax bill thanks to the government's national insurance tax rate on employers.
But should this be considered immoral? Are these big chains turning their back on local people and not worrying about what they have to pay?
Well, joining us to discuss this now is the businesswoman Geeta Sidhu-Rob and ex-apprentice contestant Ryan Mark Parsons. Let's start with you, Ryan, because I suppose you're going to make the case that this is a free market, this is capitalism, businesses are there to make money, not to have a sort of social conscience.
Well, yes, exactly. Well, that's my point exactly. I think it's totally justified. And I think the question we have to ask is, what do businesses do? What do we suggest they do? The autumn budget, I think, has been quite disastrous for business. Overall, we're looking at a £25 billion national insurance contribution tax hike, and it's a huge burden on business. We're also looking at the minimum wage increasing by 6.7%. This obviously has an operational impact on business. We're looking at supply chain stability, economic survival for business. I mean, these are the questions that we need to ask. And if we're going to go down this
Could I ask you a question, Ryan? Rather than us saying that businesses, supermarkets, etc., may be acting immorally, could you make a case where the government has acted immorally?
Well, exactly. I think in many ways they have. It's not even with this. We're looking at them appeasing their union paymasters. I'm talking about the Labour government and giving train drivers all of this money, and I'd rather see pensioners freeze to death. I think you can track across this government complete immorality. I think if we're pointing a finger at business, I think we're really pointing it in the wrong direction. We should look at the likes of Rachel Reeves and the absolute calamity of Keir Starmer as our Prime Minister, making these terrible decisions where businesses are probably going to go under. And if we're going to go down this whole moral route and conscience, etc., we need to look at the fact that businesses need to survive in order to keep jobs. It's about job preservation, because if they can't afford their tax bill because of this, because of these increases due to this government, the latest budget, then we'll find that jobs are going to be axed.
Yeah, jobs
losing their jobs
and replaced by cheaper AI. Geeta Sidhu-Rob, what do you say to all of that then? Because, you know, what's the alternative? Oh dear.
Oh, I'm sure, Geeta, I'm sure what you're saying is very, very interesting, but unless you've got a button to flick or whatever, we can't hear you. Are you on mute there? Is there anything?
Oh, I'm sorry. Am
there
I
you
back?
go. No, as if by magic.
Textbook. There we go. Well done.
Give us what I couldn't lip read. Tell us what you were saying there.
I said I'm not a huge fan of Labour, but I think that we have to make a distinction between what it is that businesses provide. When you're talking about businesses like Tesco and Sainsbury's and, you know, water companies, there can be and should be a level between after which they don't have to be more profitable than they already are. We need those in order to survive as a community, and those businesses must have a social conscience, because if they aren't going to have a social conscience, people can't afford food. So they're making enormous profits. The difference between that and a small business needs to be made. It just desperately needs to be made. We are struggling to feed people. We are struggling to actually make people survive winter. Do you remember all the heating or eating? Now people can't heat or eat. Now, what are you going to do with Tesco raising its prices, Sainsbury's raising its prices? That actually has to be immoral on some level, because businesses go towards serving a community. If a community, I'm a mother, if I can't pay for my children to eat, what is the point of you as a business? Then I can't afford what you're offering me, and therefore your business doesn't survive. That is a very different offering to my internet, for example, where I have 75 options, but actually the big supermarkets have run a lot of small businesses out of the high street. Now they have to pay the price for that, which is don't make a profit above a certain amount.
And we were just hearing in the last few moments that the boss of Tesco has just doubled his pay in the last year from around 4 million to 9 million.
How does he get through? How does he get by on that? Incredible.
And yet we'll be the ones paying for those wages in those price hikes. Ryan, what would you have as a solution to all of this then? Obviously, you'd like to scrap this national insurance tax raid, but, you know, the government's saying that they've inherited this enormous black hole. They've got to make the sums add up somehow.
Well, they're clearly making various other priorities, like I said earlier, about the winter fuel allowance and also changes to the agricultural property relief, where we're now putting family tax on family farms. We're talking about the suppliers of our food. Food security is national security in this country, but we're seeing this Labour government attack all corners of this country, whether it's our pensioners or our farmers. But then train drivers are getting enormous wage increases because their unions are telling them to do so, and they're whipping the Prime Minister in order to make these changes. I just think that I disagree with what the guest was saying earlier about this anti-competitive stance. We shouldn't be stagnating profits, also curtailing competition in this country. It's important for business. It's important.
I'm sorry, but having a competitive stance till now has actually not helped us. So if what we're going to say is capitalism is everything, we really have to understand who lives in that society and what it is we're going to give back to that society. If you are
sorry to interrupt. You interrupted me, so I'm just going to make this point here. You're talking about serving communities. There won't even be businesses that exist that can serve communities if they're not economically viable. You know, M&S are facing a £520 million tax bill, a £60 million increase because of these changes to the budget announced by Rachel Reeves. How do you think they're going to afford that? I mean, even shoplifting, for example, has been the highest recorded levels since last year. Businesses will suffer, even huge businesses like M&S.
So you think we should charge more for food because that will improve shoplifting? I have children who are struggling to find work.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying there's extra burden on business.
Folks, let me just conclude. Ryan, can you tell me, is this an immoral move or not? Yes or no?
Absolutely not. Get a life if you think it is.
OK. Gita?
I think we need to eat. And I think it's important food is affordable.
Yes or no?
Thank you both very much indeed. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Your views, very welcome. Have your say.
What do you think?
I think that this government, it lives in cloud cuckoo land. They say, oh, we'll put on this national insurance hike and no one will be hurt by this. It won't affect working people in their wage slips or whatever. Of course it's affecting them.
And it's a double whammy for farmers, because what no one's talking about, yes, we talk about the price hike for consumers in the supermarket. You can bet that the pressure on farmers will be even higher as well if there's a bigger bill for Tesco and other supermarkets to be paying.
Quite right.
What a nightmare situation. Let us know your thoughts this morning, gbnews.com/your say.
Sport coming up next with Paul.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In East Lothian, the A199 is closed each way at East Linton after an accident. The M62 in West Yorkshire is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 23 and 22 from Huddersfield to Rishworth Moor, causing delays. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, there's a lane closed clockwise where someone's broken down at junction 1 at Stockport. It's sloped towards there from junction 25. Brinnington, buses replaced trains again today between Hensford and Rushey Trent Valley because of overhead line problems. In Cambridgeshire, the A10 is partly blocked by an accident near the A1123 at Streatham. In Wiltshire, the A360 is blocked along Northgate Street in Devizes, where they're dealing with a fire at a takeaway. And the M5 in Somerset's closed each way between junctions 24 and 25 between Bridgewater South and Taunton after an accident late last night, with delays on the A38 as you divert.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Anyone for a chocolate finger?
Always, always,
Did you hear me talking about how much these are going for in France?
Yes, what is it, like 50 quid or something?
50 quid.
£1.49 I got those this morning.
Did you really?
I'm going to stop off on the way home, stockpile, flog them on Amazon.
What do you have them with, cup of tea?
Yeah, cup of tea, perfect.
Could you get through the whole box easily?
Yes.
Well, it's very easy because they're so blooming small.
You know what? Is it bad that I had chocolate for breakfast? When I get up at like 3, there was a whole nut on the side, and I just thought, that's what I need.
Think of the energy.
Is that what it is? So it is good for me to be...
You had a whole chocolate...
Not a whole one, but
a nibble.
Quite a large piece.
It's probably not ideal.
Is it
as
not?
A habit. It's fine as a one-off.
OK.
Chocolate bars, in general, are all so small compared to what they used to be 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't feel guilty about them at all. Right, David Coote, the referee, the Premier League referee, suspended.
Oh, dear.
Is he?
Oh, dear. So he's been suspended from refereeing, Premier League referee, and he was the referee for ironically, for the Liverpool-Aston Villa game, where Liverpool won 2-0.
Oh, gosh.
And he's been seen... So I don't know whether this is timed. It's a very strange thing. It looks like this was filmed about 4 years ago, and you see him, well, supposedly him, you know, we're supposed to say supposedly him, but it half look like him and sound like him, having a real go at Jurgen Klopp and also at Liverpool, and it looks like there's been a few drinks involved.
Oh, dear.
Let's have a look anyway. It's all been bleeped and blurred, all the bad stuff, but have a look.
What did you think of the Liverpool game earlier when you were fourth official?
Liverpool was
What do you think of Jurgen's
absolutely.
What would you say? Why would you say that Jurgen Klopp was
aside from having a right pop at me when I ref them against Burnley in lockdown, then he accused me of lying and then just had a right pop at me, and I've got no interest in speaking to someone who's arrogant.
Better delete that video of you then on my phone where you're...
Yeah, well, I was talking about Eamonn. Allegedly. And there's a piece at the end of the video where he goes, you know, make sure this doesn't go anywhere. Don't put this... So it begs the question, who did it? Are they friends? Was it just like a bit of fun and maybe they fell out and then someone sold the video? I don't know. This is 4 years on. Supposedly it was during lockdown, and it was after, when he refers to Liverpool not being very good, it was after they were beaten by Aston Villa again, but that was a 7-2 game 4 years ago. So really, then the questions are being asked by Liverpool fans. I say, are they questions? They're probably more statements saying, this man, he didn't give us a penalty here. Do you remember when he should have sent off Jordan Pickford when he did the foul on Virgil van Dijk? So everything that he's officiated, every Liverpool game, has now come into question. I don't believe for a second, no matter however you feel, when you are a referee and you've got as far as him, you're not going to...
Professional.
You are.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a stupid thing.
Good news and bad news for Gary Lineker. He signed a new contract with the BBC. The bad news is it will be his last one. and it'll finish in a year and a half.
2026, yeah, so there's still plenty of time. So it's kind of expected. I mean, nobody goes on forever. It's been 25 years, but it's who's going to replace him, we don't know, but it looks like it's not actually, again, officially announced, but will be expected by the BBC today that at the end of the World Cup, that will be his final hurrah. So he's had a good old run.
OK.
Quarter of a century,
Your run's coming to an end this morning. What have you got to finish on?
Do you want to do a birthday?
Yeah.
One birthday. Very, very famous sports person. Who is this? Oh, we don't have it. Look.
They're so famous, they've disappeared.
The only thing I could have done is actually tried to recreate it, but it is a very famous gymnast. And quite frankly, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. So we may have to save that for 8:30.
OK.
Is that OK?
Fair enough.
Something to look forward to.
Absolutely, always. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. We'll take a break. Just how close was Putin to firing a nuclear weapon? You're going to find out in the newspaper review right after this. Don't go away.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Let's talk to Roger Kisker, who is the legal counsel for the Christian Legal Centre. Good morning, Roger. I'm really impressed, actually, by the fact that this school is taking the government to court on this. It's the only way we might get any sort of change. How important is it for these families who find a local religious school to keep their children in there? And are they all billionaires awash with cash?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is about the fundamental right to educate your children in conformity with your religious beliefs. That's a right guaranteed under the European Convention of Human Rights. And any legislation, primary or secondary, has to be compatible with that convention. And so the basis of our claim is that this is an unfair tax because every country in the EU, first of all, it was by directive that there was no VAT on private education. In the Council of Europe, which is 56 member states, there are no other countries which put VAT on private education. This is an attack on school choice, and this is an attack on honest, hardworking parents who simply want to have their kids educated in a manner which they want them to be raised by themselves. And that, in a democratic nation, should be a given.
Obviously, Labour's logic being, just to provide some balance here, Roger, is that families who send their children to private school can afford the extra 20%, whether they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children at school. They should be able to afford it, and the schools should be able to absorb some of that cost. And that money will be spent in the state sector. Can you see the logic behind the reasoning?
To be honest, I can't, because not every school is Eton. Not every parent has the means to send their children to private education.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Joining us now what's making the headlines
best friend
today, Claire Muldoon and Alex Armstrong. Very nice to see you both.
And you? Shall we start, Claire, with the pressure that's mounting on the Archbishop of Canterbury? His position looks to be very much in the balance this morning, even though he issued a statement yesterday. I don't think that's shored up any support for him. Do you think he will go early to retire next year?
I do, and I think he must. I think he must for the state, he must for this Church of England. And, you know, maybe there's no irony lost that Wolf Hall has just started again. So anyone that needs any historical content or context for the Church of England, it's all there in Hilary Mantel's books. But yes, I firmly believe that he has to leave. He was appointed in 2013 and he was seen as a businessman. He was in the oil industry, and he was purported to be able to navigate the streams of validity of same-sex marriage, the appointment of women bishops within the Church of England, and indeed steer the Church through some torrid times. But I think now he has to go because he sits on boards that procure and get a lot of money for safeguarding issues that he signs off on. But the biggest safeguarding of all, he's not been able to safeguard, and that is the lives of innocent young lads. He knew about Smith's abuse. He knew about it and did nothing. So therefore, in my view, he was actually complicit. Yep. And for those reasons, I think he has to go, because I don't think he can do his job with utmost honesty, holding the badge of morality and honour when he knew these depraved crimes went on.
Yeah, I mean, who can take moral lectures from somebody who has essentially been part of a cover-up, from what it seems? All the reports are saying he's been part of this cover-up. 2013, there was time to put this man behind bars. There was time for him to face justice. And we see so many of these stories these days with people getting away with the most heinous things, and nothing happens. They're always, unfortunately, passed away before justice can be served. And I just think this is a real lapse of judgment.
And apparently, as well, nothing can actually be done to redress it until he has gone.
I agree with you.
Interesting. 3 members of the General Synod have now started this petition, which from within the Church has already garnered
5,000.
7,000.
7,000 now
this morning.
Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin nearly set off a nuclear weapon against Ukraine. Why did he not? Alex, what do we know about this?
Yeah, so this was during escalating tensions in October 2022. So this is a new report that's supposedly been sort of declassified or spoken about. And it actually goes on to mostly talk about Liz Truss, which is really interesting because, of course, she was incoming at the time. And it says that Liz Truss spent a lot of time reading weather charts and satellite data to understand the fallout of a nuclear weapon. Now, of course, Putin didn't press the red button, but it came as the White House was saying there's a 50% likeliness that he would, as Ukraine tensions were escalating quite rapidly at the time. Thank God he didn't press it. I think it does go to show, you might look at this 2 ways. One, you think that all these reports are overblown and perhaps that the defence industry use this as a way to sell more weapons.
Well, we've got a big report coming out, haven't we, in terms of our defence coming out soon, and and how much, what we have to spend on.
Yes, but I mean, we were none the wiser when all of this was going on, and actually the fact that it happened in this weird interim period when she'd already handed in her resignation, but they hadn't yet appointed a leader, sort of kind of lame duck position that she was in. And you just have this image of her sitting in Downing Street, obsessively looking at BBC weather maps, trying to work out how big a problem this was. But does it go some way to helping us understand why Biden is reticent to allow missiles to be fired directly into Russia?
I think that's exactly the case. I mean, he said this is a red line, and Putin has said this will be all-out war with NATO. I mean, he has said that about other things, but I think we do have to take the threat of nuclear weapons really seriously. One goes off and it's over. One goes off and it's over for all of us. So I do agree we should de-escalate as much as possible.
Claire, the Prime Minister sees climate transition as an opportunity for the UK. Now, he's saying this at the COP29 conference. So a lot of people would think that he's a bit too enthusiastic about all of this, and he's getting into a lot of trouble by cutting our existing industries, but he sees it as an opportunity.
Of course he does, and he'll see that through the lens of whatever green bile that Ed Miliband is actually feeding him. It's atrocious. I mean, they've allowed COP29, Germany aren't there. France aren't there. There's a lot of European unions. And actually, do you know what? There's no one from the SNP there either, because they all like the jollies to COP28 and COP27. They're not there this year. And I just think that as soon as Labour got in, I felt shivers down my spine, not because of the rising heating bills, etc., but because I know that it's not safe in their hands. I mean, our renewables, 1 to 2% of our energy comes from wind farms, and they've got £200 million worth of investment that's coming together from this. It's huge business. Green energy is huge business, and that is at the cost of British taxpayers. It's at the cost of British homeowners, British renters. It's over the cost of British people, and I'm not having it. I don't think it's right at all. It's so sad, and it's so manipulative. Sort it out, but not to the detriment of people not being able to heat
the statistics that we're hearing that are coming out of there. 2024 is predicted to pass 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than any other year since pre-industrial levels, warmer even than 2023, which broke all pre-existing levels. I mean, this is based on 6 data sets. This is based on top professors from around the world. The guy from the University of Oxford came out yesterday and was saying we're running out of time to deal with this for humanity to make deep emissions cuts. Well, is it not something to be proud of if we could be the world leaders in this? If nobody else is there, it's an opportunity, is it not?
But look, I'm not a climate change denier. I do believe the climate has changed as a result of what humans have put into the atmosphere, and there's plenty of evidence and data to support that. What I think is important is that we take the right approach and we do not burden the poorest people in our society with this, because it is not their fault.
But it's important to be at the table to talk about it.
We should certainly discuss it.
But we are at the table.
Global solution.
We are there.
But I would love to see us focus on the ones that actually do pollute, which is China, India, Brazil and America. We are a tiny contributor in that, and of course we can have all the rhetoric and lead the way, so to speak, but we're driven by them. And until they choose to change, nothing will actually change the planet at all, and so it's all a bit of a farce.
What I think's really interesting in this whole, Trump environment, COP29 debate, his closeness and this alliance that he's developed with Elon Musk.
Yes.
Because, of course, he is the big driver behind all electric vehicles, which obviously is going to succeed as a kind of emissions-cutting business programme. Will we see a shift in Trump's rhetoric on all of this? Obviously, famously, he pulled out of the climate change agreement, the Paris Accord, when he was last president. Will he do it again?
No.
Will he now take a different approach? I think it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be, but all the indicators at the moment point to that being no. He will not change route. He will double down on it. From what I'm hearing, we spoke to a senator here on the weekend, actually, an ex-senator, should I say, and he said absolutely not. Trump is going to get absolutely rid of this net zero stuff. However, Elon Musk is an incredible entrepreneur. Will have his ear, and it only benefits Elon Musk to have more green electricity and solar farms. Which
and yet,
the
electric cars in this country have been slashed because they're not meeting the sales for the tariff.
We've got to leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed. See you again in 40 minutes' time. Right now, let's get a weather update. Alex Deakin.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day out there for most. It is a bit colder first thing this morning compared to recent mornings, and there are a few fog patches around too. Parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, some dense patches of fog to be aware of for your morning commute. It's not completely dry. A few showers just drifting in there to parts of Essex, Kent. We may even see one or two in the London area at times through the day today, but they should be fairly light and move through on the breeze. Bit of cloud over central and eastern England, but for many, further west and north, it's dry, it's fine. Plenty of autumn sunshine, except where that fog sticks, which will suppress the temperatures. For most temperatures, after that chilly start, getting to about the average for the time of year, 9, 10, 11 Celsius. Feeling cooler, though, with this fairly brisk breeze across the far southeast, which will generate the odd shower, some for the coast of East Anglia as well. Quite a bit of fine and sunny weather for most, but that fog across Northern Ireland, even if it clears, could reform pretty quickly as we go through this evening. Much of Scotland having a dry and fine evening, but notice the cloud is increasing across the far northwest, so that cloud moving in across the Western Isles, bringing a few spots of rain before midnight. The showers in the southeast should tend to fizzle out as we go through the night, so most will become dry. Again, some fog, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, and across into parts of Wales. This kind of central zone. That's also where we're most likely to see a frost. Towns and cities holding up at 2 or 3 Celsius, but in rural spots we will be down to -2 or -3. So again, a frosty, foggy start in these central areas. A bit more cloud tomorrow over northern Scotland. So there'll be a little bit of patchy rain just trickling over the Highlands, clearing from the Western Isles. Perhaps not as many showers tomorrow across the southeast. So for much of England and Wales, it's a dry, fine and sunny day. Again, temperatures 10, 11, 12 degrees, but lower if those fog patches stick again.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In East Lothian, the A199 is closed each way at East Linton after an accident. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there are westbound delays after an accident between junctions 23 and 22 from Huddersfield to Rishworth Moor. Buses replaced trains again today between Hensford and Rugeley Trent Valley because of overhead line problems. There are delays on the A10 in both directions at Streatham after an accident. On the M11 in Essex, there are southbound queues towards junction 7 at Harlow after traffic was stopped because of an accident. In Wiltshire, the A360 is blocked where they're dealing with a fire at a takeaway on Northgate Street in Devizes. The M5 in Somerset's closed each way between junctions 24 and 25 between Bridgewater South and Taunton after an accident late last night with delays on the A38 as you divert. And in Devon, the A361 is partly blocked by an accident at South Molton. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Demand.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good morning. Fury on family farms.
Farmers across the country are gearing up to protest against the government's inheritance tax raid on the agricultural sector.
Now, this comes as the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson criticises Labour's policy.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
GB News presenter Emily Carver will be live for us all day on a farm on Exmoor.
I'm here in North Devon. This time next week, hundreds, if not thousands of farmers will descend on the capital. I'm here to find out exactly why they're so angry.
Pressure mounts on the Archbishop of Canterbury to resign over his handling of a child abuse scandal involving the most prolific serial abuser in the Church of England. Olivia Utley with the story.
The US envoy is vowing to fight climate change despite Donald Trump's recent victory as the COP29 climate conference continues.
Here in Baku, Sir Keir Starmer is about to unveil tough new emissions targets for Britons. But will it mean more green burdens on all of us?
Christmas present will be joined by EastEnders star Lacey Turner to reveal her perfect picks.
Fears grow that supermarket prices could increase following the government's national insurance tax raid on businesses. We're asking, is that move immoral?
And in my sport labour exchange today, I've got a few vacancies. It looks like the Premier League are looking for a new referee. Match of the Day needed a new host, and England require 8 new players for this week.
It's a bit colder out there this morning, and there are some fog patches around as well. But for many, it'll be a fine autumn day. Join me later for a full forecast.
On this Tuesday morning, a very good morning. Good to have you on board. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has hit out...
I was going to talk to you, but she's way off in the
That was
news.
an awkward silence, so I was waiting for you to speak. I leapt in. Let's talk to Coity, much more interesting.
Have there been... Has my offer come in for Match of the Day yet? Has it arrived yet? Has there anything come through?
When you think of some people over the years who there's been, like Jimmy Hill as the presenter, some are good, some are bad, some are not so good. My favourite football anchor of all time, there was a man called Brian Moore.
Oh, what a legend.
For ITV.
Yes.
I thought he was absolutely superb.
Didn't you drive him around?
I did.
Didn't you drive him? You did.
No, he came to Belfast.
I know this sounds like it's rehearsed, but it's not.
He came to Belfast one time to commentate on Northern Ireland versus England, and I was given the job by Ulster Television, not to report on the game, but to be his taxi driver, to make sure he wasn't going to be bored by any taxi driver, he wasn't going to get into any trouble, be led astray. So I, in my lime green Fiat Strada, drove him to Windsor Park.
Is he going? He turns left, he turns right, he goes...
I tell you what, he was a gentleman.
Oh,
I know you
I've never heard a bad word about him.
Absolute gentleman. And such a thrill it was for me at, 19, 20 years of age to be there so close up with him.
Match of the Day. I know, big match. That was the big match on the Sunday afternoon. Yeah. Used to get Match of the Day in the evening. On the Saturday, the big match.
George, you can hit him. Oh, a great goal. Charlie George.
But then for me... David Coleman, and I sent you that. That's it. There's actually something on YouTube where you get because that was his catchphrase, 1-0, and it was always when the first goal would go in. So someone put all these 1-0s all next to each other. David Coleman, what a commentator!
See the things you've missed out on.
Yeah, gutted.
Yeah,
1-0. He didn't used to do 2-0, just 1-0, and that was it. But what a guy.
So many great people.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
That's the thing, though, after Gary Lineker, they have got to get somebody with a big personality, I think. I think that's the trouble.
There's no way whoever takes over will take over for 25 years. I mean, that is some legacy, isn't it? Yeah.
The rights for those sort of things, they'll be up for grabs every week, I'd say, from here on in.
Absolutely. Short span of attention for people watching. Short span attention for doing.
I'll keep my eye posted.
If you could, just
we can't afford you. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. Right, let's get on then, shall we, with what Boris Johnson's been saying. He's hit out at the government's changes to inheritance tax for farmers.
Now, in an exclusive interview with us, he's called the changes absolutely mad.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. We are struggling. I mean,
not the protest. I'm assuming the inheritance.
No, the inheritance tax thing. It is. We're struggling to keep people on the land to make sure that farmers are incentivised to hand over their business to their descendants. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
His comments come ahead of 2 planned protests in Westminster. They're going to happen next week. 10,000 farmers are expected to attend.
Well, let's cross live to GB News' Emily Carver, who's at a farm on Exmoor in North Devon for us this morning. Emily, it's been so interesting seeing a little insight into that farm where you are, and it is such a precious part of, I suppose, the fabric of this country. But legitimate concerns about this policy change and what it might mean for these family farms?
Absolutely, Isabel. There are very many legitimate concerns about the impact of Rachel Reeves's budget, specifically those changes to inheritance tax, that death tax, 20% on assets over £1 million. Yes, I'm here in Fernham Farm in North Devon, not far from Barnstable, to talk to the farmers here and to get a taste of what life is like on a farm. Is there a lot of graft that goes into an average day? Do the people in Westminster who are making all these decisions that will affect rural communities, affect the family farm, actually understand what is going on a farm absolutely every day and what goes into it? I want to find out a little bit more about the economics of a farm. We hear a lot about rich landowners, rich farmers. They've got huge amounts of wealth. But actually, what goes into running a farm? How much profit do they make? And do they really have tons of cash to be able to give to the Treasury? Well, James, thank you very much indeed. We are standing right by your tractor and also by these beautiful heifers too, who are having a munch. Just talk to me a little bit about the economics of a farm, because as I said, we see a lot of all this rich farmers. They've got land to burn. We can take a little bit of cash from them. Why not? Big shoulders and all the rest. But what actually is it like for the average farmer, for you?
Well, I mean, look, 40% of farmers earn under minimum wage. So that means that they're not even earning what the average person does. And a third of farmers are tenant farmers, so they don't even own the farms that they look after. And simple matter of the fact is food is cheap, and that's great because it means it's affordable for everybody, but it does mean that farming is not that profitable.
And do you think the government, people in Westminster, are representatives who are supposed to represent people like you just as much as they represent, I don't know, train drivers, for example? Do you think they get it?
No, I don't think they do. I mean, if you look at who's in cabinet, in the Labour cabinet, there's nobody who's ever started a business, you know, and in the last government there were plenty of people like that, and simply people in Westminster, MPs of all parties, just don't get the reality of what it's like to farm.
And you were telling me that there are even farmers in the area or in the surrounding areas who are having to visit food banks. I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of farmers rely on tax credits, which are being phased out, and they're not eligible for universal credit, which means they're just not going to be able to afford to survive. But yeah, many farmers do use food banks, particularly in times of year like this. There's nothing to sell now until next year, and if you've had a bad year, you literally are, you haven't got enough food to feed your own family.
Now, Eamonn and Isabel, bear with us because I'm going to be taught how to do an activity at the farm. What are we about to do?
We're about to go and blow up some, chop some straw in the bedding.
Fantastic. I'm going to get into the big seat, into the driving seat on this tractor. James, tell me what I need to do.
Clutch,
okay.
We'll start.
Ooh, okay, there we go.
The tractor. We're going to put some revs up.
Revs up.
Engage the PTO.
Engage the PTO.
And then you're going to push that lever there.
Okay.
Push it a little bit. There we are.
Woo! So that's the straw going in for the bedding for the heifers, who are the pregnant cows. James, you do this every day. We're going to stop it there. We've had enough. But there you go. There's me having a go at it. We're going to be following the whole day in the life of a farmer, of James Wright in particular, on this farm in North Devon. Get an insight on what it's like to graft every day on a family farm. Back to you, Eamonn and Isabel.
I thought you were about to drive that tractor, Emily, and I was thinking to myself, I've seen an episode of Clarkson's Farm, and it didn't end well when he got behind the wheel for the first time. I think it was a Ferrari tractor or something, wasn't it? And it was, anyway, it was dangerous. Don't be driving that if you don't know what you're doing, Emily, but loving seeing behind the scenes and just such an important part.
I won't. I'll be careful. I'll be careful.
Be careful. Yeah, we'll hold you to it. Thank you.
Huge amount of accidents caused.
I mean, it's dangerous work. It's hard work. It's incredibly valuable work. And, you know, those people who are saying, well, they get treated better than we do with inheritance tax rules. Yeah, but, I mean, goodness me, they barely make ends meet during their lifetime, certainly not turning huge profits. And lots of people saying that this is simply another one of the elements of the budget that is class-driven, that this is about people that they perceive to be these wealthy, land-owning sort of gentry. And actually it's hitting those people who are, you know, these farms that are somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I spent 2 years of my working life as a farming reporter.
Yeah.
It's the smell all the time. And I don't mean that in a bad way. You become very used to it. It just is...
Yeah.
That's what home is. That's
my ex-boyfriend had a small holding, and he said it didn't smell like home until he could smell the... Which has always made me smile.
And you can smell that smell in various other places, you know, like newsrooms and things. But it's a different type of manure. Anyway, last night Patrick Christie spoke to former Labour Party advisor John McTernan about this whole policy. This is what he had to say.
Boris called it dumb. I mean, is it dumb? I mean, the Labour Party have now won quite a few rural seats and they've managed to alienate them all, haven't they?
No, because most people in rural seats aren't farmers, but those who are farmers and small farmers won't actually be affected by this change. This is a change clamping down on tax avoidance. I'm not surprised that Boris Johnson wants to support tax avoidance, but the Labour Party doesn't support tax avoidance, avoiding inheritance tax through this device of buying farms. And that's right. The farmers still get a privileged status for their farms, and I think that may or may not be right. I'm personally in favour of doing to farmers who want to go on the streets, we can do to them what Margaret Thatcher did to the miners.
So just to be clear, John, you would, beat them up?
No, close them. I mean, this is an industry we could do without.
So, OK, all right, so this got weird. So you would do to farmers what Margaret Thatcher did to miners, which was, and she used
industry.
very heavy-handed police tactics, followed by what? Putting them out of business.
If people are so upset that they want to go on the streets and spray slurry on them, then we don't need the small farmers.
What's he talking about?
Gosh, it's the first time I've seen that clip.
Are there many people who believe they don't need farmers and they have no sympathy with them?
Does that reveal an interesting insight into the psyche of many people who are supportive of this bill? Just a disregard for what farmers do and what will happen to
but
food
most of those
security,
people would be politicians.
the countryside. What are we going to do? Concrete over all of these farms once the farmers can no longer afford them? What kind of country do we want to live in? What kind of prices do we want to pay for our food? We can do without this industry. Can't believe you said that. Let us know what you think about that.
Neither can I, and I mean, he's a former politician, but I seriously wonder about the understanding that politicians have about the land and just what sympathetically they should be thinking about the land and historically, but no one seems to care.
Well, Jeremy Clarkson's been really brilliant in a lot of his comments. Sorry to keep mentioning him, but I feel like he's become a bit of a sort of man of the people on this issue. He says, brilliant, festoon the countryside with new towns and eco-pylons, kill all the livestock and bring the displaced farmers back as tenants to grow quinoa and kale for the politicians in Kensington. Oh, it doesn't mean Kensington. Which part of London do they all hail from? Kentish Town and, Islington. Oh, dear.
Your views, very welcome. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is facing increased pressure to stand down after his handling of a child abuse scandal, or maybe not his handling of it.
Well, an independent report exposed his failure to act on allegations involving the barrister John Smith, who has been one of the Church's most prolific abusers.
Current Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer refused to back the Archbishop of Canterbury, stating the issue was a matter for the Church. We're joined by our political correspondent Olivia Utley on this one. So, typical Starmer sort of tactic there, stand back, let somebody else take the rap for it. Why do you think he's not speaking about this directly and has a view on this?
Well, Justin Welby is in really hot water here. A bishop, a few senior members of the clergy of the Church of England and numerous victims of John Smith have now called on Justin Welby to resign. And it could well be that Keir Starmer just thinks that Justin Welby's tenure as Archbishop of Canterbury is simply not sustainable in the current state. Justin Welby said last week that he had seriously considered resigning over the matter, but had decided not to. That prompted a backlash, and that backlash only seems to be increasing. What exactly did Justin Welby do wrong? Well, there are two allegations, really. Firstly, in 1981, just after Welby had been made a priest, he was talking to another priest in Paris, and that priest told him, he said that one of the boys who had been under John Smith's care had said that he was really not a very nice man. Justin Welby didn't follow up on that at all. That might be excusable on its own. The issue is that then in 2013, when John Smith's abuse became public, when there was a referral to the governing body of the Church of England, and the abuse was actually reported to Justin Welby. Justin Welby doesn't seem to have been very curious about it at all. In fact, he doesn't really seem to have done anything at all. Now, that is even more remarkable, given that Justin Welby has had a personal association with John Smith over the years. He's given money to John Smith's crowdfunding events for his fundraising missions in Zimbabwe. He said that he's given £40 or £50 on a few occasions. And yet, when this report of abuse came out in 2013, Welby did nothing at all. That meant that John Smith's abuse allegations just weren't investigated properly up until his death in 2018. So he died without ever being properly punished for those horrific abuses of 130 boys over a span of multiple decades. Whether the Archbishop of Canterbury's position is sustainable now really, really remains to be seen. It does feel very up in the air, and it could be that Keir Starmer simply doesn't want to sort of back the losing horse. It does seem a little strange to me that the Prime Minister hasn't given a view on this issue, but as you say, Eamonn, it is quite typical of Keir Starmer. He likes to play pretty cautiously. He doesn't want to come down too hard on one side or the other. In fact, on assisted dying, similarly, he doesn't really seem to have want to make his view concrete and public. It'll be really, really interesting to see how this matter plays out.
Indeed, it will, Olivia. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for the update.
We should make the point that the Archbishop of Canterbury has released a statement in relation to all of this. He says he recognises the courage of the victims, including those related to John Smith, who've come forward and had to relive their trauma through contributing to this review. He went on to say, I had no idea or suspicion of this abuse before 2013.
Nevertheless, the review is clear that I personally failed to ensure that after disclosure in 2013, the awful tragedy was energetically investigated. Since that time, the way in which the Church of England engages with victims and survivors has changed beyond recognition.
We are asking you for your thoughts on this morning. We always love to know what you think on the issue of the day. And our poll, the question of the day is, should the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, step down? We'll have the results of that live throughout the day. The ultimate result will be in Martin Daubney's show, but we'll have a little preview for you from breakfast just after 9 o'clock.
And for the latest polls, news and how to vote, you go to gbnews.com/poll.
Right, so Keir Starmer is set to unveil a new and highly ambitious climate target committing the UK to an 81% reduction in emissions by 2035.
That's just over 10 years from now. Goodness me. That's as he attends the United Nations annual climate conference in Azerbaijan. But key leaders, including Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, Olaf Scholz and Ursula von der Leyen, are not there.
Well, one man who is who's there for us is our political editor, Christopher Hope. Good morning to you, Chopper. This is interesting, isn't it? Because you've got all of these big names who are giving it a bit of a swerve this year. Is that, as the Prime Minister's claiming, our opportunity to try and, you know, make a way in an increasingly green sector, perhaps create jobs and boost the economy, because goodness knows we need it? Or is it a sign that he's out of step with the rest of the world and nobody wants to pay for expensive climate policies?
Yes, well, morning here from Baku in Azerbaijan at COP29. There are 98 heads of delegations here, but very few of the biggest countries. Giorgia Meloni is here from the only other G7 nation apart from the UK, and that gives Sir Keir Starmer a bit of global leadership. Now, he's going to be announcing later, we expect, not confirmed yet, but we expect announcing later to increase the emissions targets to 81% fall since 1990. Currently, we're looking at 68% by 2030. That is expected to go, according to reports, to 81% by 2035. That could mean more imposition on the daily lives of GB News viewers and listeners, more demands for ditching boilers and maybe new heat pumps and phasing out more petrol engines. So all these kind of things we're looking at, which do worry people, and some people think, why are we going so fast, much further ahead than other polluting countries? But that's where Sir Keir Starmer is. He believes there's a climate transition going on. There's loads of money being tipped into wind farms and solar panels companies, and he wants to try and harness that and develop new industries for the UK. He's announcing today a £1 billion investment for wind farms in Hull, and he wants more of that. So this is the idea. The idea here is to try and harness private capital and get that into try and transform the economy. We asked him why on earth you're flying 2,500 miles to come here and talk about the economy and then the climate change and fly back after about 24 hours. He says he comes here to talk about the economy, our economy, and also small boats, the migration crisis affecting so many countries. So he's aware of the critics, but he feels it's worth taking that on the chin to try and improve our chances in this climate change revolution.
Will be ambitious, and that's measured not by telling people what to do, it's measured by making sure that we get to clean power by 2030. That's the single most important target on the way to the emissions, and that will bring with it lower bills for people for their energy. It'll give them independence so that tyrants like Putin can't put his boot on our throat, causing all sorts of difficulties for our energy bills, and it comes with the next generation of jobs. I accept it's difficult target. It's an achievable target, but it's not about telling people how to live their lives. I'm not interested in that.
OK, Christopher Hope, thanks very much indeed. Just worth an interesting stat to say goodbye on. I just read in The Guardian that Sir Keir Starmer's going to spend 22 out of the 77 days from the beginning of September overseas, jetting about here, there and everywhere, which is something to mull as he's there at COP29 for us. Thanks very much, Christopher Hope.
Thank you. Well, from Azerbaijan, we look at the rest of the UK, and let's see what the weather picture is going to be like.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day out there for most. It is a bit colder first thing this morning compared to recent mornings, and there are a few fog patches around too. Parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, some dense patches of fog to be aware of for your morning commute. It's not completely dry. A few showers just drifting in there to parts of Essex, Kent. We may even see one or two in the London area at times through the day today, but they should be fairly light and move through on the breeze. Bit of cloud over central and eastern England, but for many, further west and north, it's dry, it's fine. Plenty of autumn sunshine, except where that fog sticks, which will suppress the temperatures. For most temperatures, after that chilly start, getting to about the average for the time of year, 9, 10, 11 Celsius. Feeling cooler, though, with this fairly brisk breeze across the far southeast, which will generate the odd shower, some for the coast of East Anglia as well. Quite a bit of fine and sunny weather for most, but that fog across Northern Ireland, even if it clears, could reform pretty quickly as we go through this evening. Much of Scotland having a dry and fine evening, but notice the cloud is increasing across the far northwest, so that cloud moving in across the Western Isles, bringing a few spots of rain before midnight. The showers in the southeast should tend to fizzle out as we go through the night, so most will become dry. Again, some fog, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, and across into parts of Wales. This kind of central zone. That's also where we're most likely to see a frost. Towns and cities holding up at 2 or 3 Celsius, but in rural spots we will be down to -2 or -3. So again, a frosty, foggy start in these central areas. A bit more cloud tomorrow over northern Scotland. So there'll be a little bit of patchy rain just trickling over the Highlands, clearing from the Western Isles. Perhaps not as many showers tomorrow across the southeast. So for much of England and Wales, it's a dry, fine and sunny day. Again, temperatures 10, 11, 12 degrees, but lower if those fog patches stick again.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now.
We've got Lacey Turner, just to say, from EastEnders, who plays Stacey Slater there, and she's going to be talking to us about Christmas very, very shortly. But in the meantime...
Yeah, how do you fancy £25,025, plus shopping vouchers and a GB News goodie bag? If it sounds like something you're keen on, why not have a go in our Great British Giveaway?
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa entitled World Front for Combat Against Jews and Crusaders, and President George W. Bush talked of a crusade on terrorism. In 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula sent a parcel bomb to New York. It was addressed to Reginald of Chatillon. The addressee had died at the hands of Saladin in 1187. Those facts suggest that the long history of struggle between Christendom and Islamic caliphates remains relevant, at least to some militant Islamists. That being the case, perhaps we should all understand the past. General Sir Simon Mayle, a former Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff Operations, can be our teacher, particularly if we want to know in gory detail about battles to control Jerusalem, Constantinople, Vienna and the Eastern Mediterranean. His new book is called The House of War. It's an excellent read, which perhaps ought to figure in a national adult curriculum. and he joins me. But let's begin with the word crusade. What was it that drove Christians around Europe to want to cross to the Holy Land and seize Jerusalem?
Context and timing is really important to understand. It's been rather stereotyped as Christian aggression against peace-loving Muslims. The Islamic religion had burst out of the desert in the 7th century with the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and for the next nearly 400 years had Christianity, Christendom, the Christian states absolutely on the back foot. It took the Holy Land, destroyed the Persian Empire, took the North Africa, which was Christian at the time, including Egypt, of course, took Spain all the way into Tours, Charles Martel. 100 years after the death of the Prophet, it expanded in an extraordinary state.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Just before we bring you Paul and the sport, we just want to show you the lineup for this year's I'm a Celebrity, which will begin in a week's time or so. And we're not there. None of us are there.
I know I didn't get the same call Farage got last year. What was it that he got a massive payout on that, didn't he? Quite the gig. Well, this year, who are the big stars, Eamonn?
Well, to me, I don't think there are any big stars.
Camille Rooney's pretty big name.
Yeah, she used to be somebody, yeah. Barry McGuigan, my personal, Paul, I don't know what you think, the sports people there, Barry McGuigan...
yeah, like Barry.
Would score very well.
Yeah.
I would have thought he's a very likeable fella and whatever.
Talisa. She was quite big back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Also, she was a judge, wasn't she? Was it X Factor or on...
and there was a bit of a scandal, and then she disappeared for, 15 years, and then she's back again.
Another judge from Strictly. We've got Jane Moore, the journalist and panellist from Loose Women. And that's about all the names that I've heard of. Maura Higgins and Reverend Richard Coles are poised to go in at some point halfway through.
I think they're pretty...
Scraping there?
Scraping it, yeah. I don't understand this, why they get...
You didn't get the call because you've said many times you would never do it.
Yeah. And I don't think I could do it this year. Me in my wheelchair. I'd give them some amusement.
I think I'd pay good money to see you in the jungle, Eamonn. I'd be voting every night. Get the rats on him.
My kids said
Oh, you Dad wouldn't, would you?
Yeah, I think it'd be funny. You're scared of mice, aren't you?
I have a bit of a phobia about mice.
From childhood.
Yeah.
So imagine being locked in a, confined space with rodents.
Do you know why I have a phobia about mice?
No.
When I was 4 or 5 years of age, my mother said to me, quick, get your Wellingtons on and we'll go out. So I went to what was called the coal hole, where my Wellingtons were kept under the stairs, and they kept the coal in there as well. And I got my Wellington boots out, and I couldn't get them on. Couldn't get my...
Oh, no.
Mom said, will you hurry up? Will you hurry up? Well, I said, well, I can't get my foot on. Goodness sake. And then she couldn't get my foot on, so she pulled it off and turned it upside down, and a mouse jumped out.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness me. I think I've got a phobia of mice now, just thinking of that. That's
so
horrendous.
Sweet. Why are people frightened of mice?
Mice, I've stood on the platform at the tube, or the underground, walked past, no problem. And then we had one that was in the bathroom and the door closed, had to call out. I couldn't go in there.
Yeah.
I couldn't go in there.
It's irrational, though, isn't it? I mean, you're like 50 times the size of this thing.
I know, and it was the guy turned up. I don't know whether this is a bad thing to say, but then the guy turns up, the door closes, and then you hear, yeah, got it. And then that was it.
Oh, no,
You stood on it.
Yeah. And then, that was no problem. And it was like, oh, dear.
I know
I felt
someone
terrible.
who was in their office and they had this sticky tape to catch
That was
the
what they
mice.
had.
And the mouse was on the sticky tape but alive and was squeaking.
Yeah.
And my friend, shall we say, got up and walked over and just put it out of its misery.
Oh,
Stamped
no,
on it.
no.
And, you know, that was the humane thing to do, but...
Well, I did a film once in a hotel in London, the poshest hotel. I'm not going to say which one. But under every single bed, they had that sticky paper.
Oh, really?
Which caught the mice under the bed. So,
oh, my goodness.
Apparently any building you have in London is riddled with
Well,
mice.
you know, do you remember when we were covering the coronation and Kinsey Schofield flew in from LA and she's all starry-eyed about being in London for the coronation and she slept with her hotel window open. First error in London. In came a rodent. She never got over it. I don't think she ever wants to come back again after that.
No, oh, my goodness me.
So, Paul, what have you got for us this morning?
Right, just a quick word about David Coote. David Coote is the referee, Premier League referee, who has been suspended from the PGMOL for now. This video that's emerged of him, where it's supposed to be, looks like it's him. We're supposed to say it's allegedly him, but you see this. Anyway, have a look. You can see what he says.
What did you think of the Liverpool game earlier when you were fourth official?
Liverpool was
What do you think of Jurgen's
absolutely.
What would you say? Why would you say that Jurgen Klopp was
aside from having a right pop at me when I ref them against Burnley in lockdown, then he accused me of lying and then just had a right pop at me, and I've got no interest in speaking to someone who's arrogant.
You know what I think is so funny about this, that the Empire Strikes Back, you know, that managers can slag off referees till the cows come home.
Of course.
And now to hear one in reverse, I think is very funny.
I think that the problem is that it's not that. I think it's because then you would have fans question his impartiality.
Yes,
Therefore, he's talking about Liverpool and he's talking about Klopp and, that's the reason he didn't give this decision and all that's coming out.
So for damage limitations, if I was his press advisor, I would try and get lots of videos of him saying terrible things about all of the managers that he's had contretemps with or ding-dongs with. And then
I hate everybody.
I'm sure they probably do.
92 videos he's going to have to do very quickly.
They probably do have quite negative opinions of a lot of the people that they've had run-ins with because, you know, they're just trying to do their job.
And what he's saying about Jurgen Klopp, okay, the other thing is the language is bad, but it's like, what are you doing? Someone's videoing you say this.
Yeah, but he's clearly under the influence of...
It looks like it. It does look like it. Anyway,
it's
going to carry on. There's going to be conspiracy theories, but a few other bits and pieces. Gary Lineker is the league match of the day at the end of next season. So, this big story, Lineker's going, but it's not going to be for ages. We've still got the World Cup in 2026, so he's not going to leave until then. So we may not even know anything about who's the next one going to be. This new cab off the rank may not have even be a cab yet. So who knows? It's still a long time to go. Ruud van Nistelrooy has left. Matt, are you sad about this, Eamonn? Because
well, I can see why you would be sad. I mean, his record's superb. He didn't lose a game in his 5 matches with us. He's a club hero as well. So I think it's quite unfortunate for him, and that I can understand why there's no role for him. But it's a pity he can't stay at the club.
Yeah, see, he would probably want to be a number 1 somewhere and would do a good job. Whether he wants to stick around, the new managers come in, Ruben Amorim, and he came in yesterday with his own people. So it leaves Van Nistelrooy then looking for another move. Who knows in future? But the thing is, they also don't want to go down the road they did with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer by going, he did really well as the interim manager. Let's give him the job. So they're not going to do that. So he'll be fine. So he may even come back to United in the future. We just don't know. Couple of England games coming up this week. Greece on Thursday, Republic of Ireland on Sunday. 8 out through injury, so 8 replacements. I think a lot of the time, managers, even players, think, you know what, it's about the Premier League for me. I would rather not play. So I think they're quite quick to do that, don't you?
Yeah.
I really do. Birthday, do you want to do this?
Yeah, let's do a birthday.
OK, famous sporting birthday. Only have one for you. Who is... Oh, look at that. Who is that?
Oh...
There's 2 Huge names.
It's Lionel Messi.
That's the fella. You've got your Olga Korbut
If
in
you're
72.
listening in the radio, it's a gymnast. I'm guessing the era is 70s. Is that what you just said? Sorry, 72.
Nadia Comaneci.
Okay.
The legendary Nadia Comaneci from Romania.
She's got to be the same age as me.
First gymnast to get a perfect 10 at the Olympics, Montreal 76.
65.
65 for Nadia Comaneci. She was, by the way, if it helps, she was 14 then.
Oh.
65.
65 still?
OK, I'll go with Eamon's maths on that. I can't do it quickly enough. 64.
63.
Ah.
63 tonight. But she
Very
was,
good.
She was one of the best there was. Nadia Comaneci.
I love gymnastics. I just think it's remarkable. We had a colleague, didn't we, who was an Olympic gymnast.
Yeah.
And she's still incredibly flexible now. I was watching a video of her on Instagram. What age should she be now? In her 50s?
She's mad. It's made her mad.
Most top athletes have a certain level of mania about them.
And she's very bendy.
She's very bendy. Well, she was doing a headstand, a sort of yoga move with a sort of backward splits yesterday. You know, once you're that athletic and that flexible, it's with you for life.
I had kids at school that could do that.
Instagram.
Yeah.
I couldn't even do a head over heels. I couldn't even do that.
I couldn't even touch my toes.
I can do a headstand as long as I'm leaning against... My feet can lean against a wall.
Yeah.
But my core is probably not quite as strong as it should be to hold it full time. But I can do a headstand.
Go on, then.
Yeah, you go and do that.
What are the chances?
You go and do that.
I'll post a
We're
video
back.
on
Okay, fine.
Instagram
We're back to the
later.
papers. Alex Armstrong, Claire Muldoon, right after this. Please don't go away.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M6 in Warwickshire is partly blocked southbound by an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from the M42 to Coventry. In Norfolk, the A47 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident towards the A11 Thickthorne roundabout just outside Norwich, causing queues. In East Sussex, the A27 is partly blocked westbound after an accident and oil spill between the Ashcombe roundabout at Lewes and the Rottingdean junction, causing delays. Now, in Hampshire, the A343 is closed each way southwest of Andover after an accident causing queues. In Wiltshire, the A360 is closed along Northgate Street in Devizes, where they're dealing with a fire, the queues towards there. The M5 in Somerset is closed in both directions between junctions 24 and 25, between Bridgewater South and Taunton after an accident late last night. There are delays towards the closure and on the A38 as you divert. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
and Alex are here, and they've got stories that are catching their eyes in the paper. Could I begin with I'm a Celebrity?
Yeah.
The lineup's been revealed in the papers today.
You want to rename it I'm a B-lister?
Well, I think there are very few people there that would interest me in that lineup that they have. But you see, it's all about ITV avoiding controversy, when actually the whole thing about I'm a Celebrity is you want controversy, you want them arguing with each other. They want everybody to be friends in it and whatever. It's not...
It's also the way they can frame it as well. I don't think you actually get the true personalities coming through there. And, oh yeah, it's great to have some camaraderie and laughs. I mean, people need laughs. It's on every night when it's pitch black and it's cold and we're arguing over the thermostat in our homes. And we want to be, we want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Isn't there supposed to be a sort of Matt Hancock pantomime season, we want to punish you character in every lineup?
Well,
Who have they got this year that everyone's going to want to vote for?
I don't
they
know.
Sort of love to hate.
I don't know who 99% of them are. There's one
That's a slight exaggeration, Alex.
That's what my
it's
maths
a big exaggeration.
But there's only one celebrity Isabel's mentioned that I know, and that's Talisa, who used to be in the band. No, Colleen Rooney.
Well, let's go through them. Colleen Rooney, Talisa, Barry McGuigan, former world champion boxer, Danny Jones, who's a singer and songwriter from McFly, Melvin Odum. I thought he was in Dad's, not in Dad's Song, but It Ain't Half Hot, Mum.
He was one of the top 40 DJs, was he? Melvin and...
He's also doing Radio 1 show, and Dean McCulloch. So they've got two Northern Ireland people there.
What station's Dean McCulloch from?
BBC Radio 1.
Is he Radio 1?
Yeah.
What time?
Early morning.
So out of touch with Radio 1.
You really are.
Properly old now. OK, and Oti Mabuse would know from Strictly, presumably. Yep. Alan Halsall,
I think he'll stand a good chance because he's a very nice fella from Coronation Street.
Oh, right, Corrie.
He's an actor there. Jane Moore from Loose Women. And G.K. Barry. Who's G.K. Barry?
He's an influencer.
Is it not a she?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know, Claire. You're saying that like you know.
Start making me question. Well, let's lead on from that, shall we? We've kind of agreed we're sort of not as exciting as other lineups.
Come on, get your party food on, get your Christmas tree up. It's the beginning of the festive season. This is what this heralds. This is what it heralds.
It's way too early for a Christmas tree.
Maybe.
It's not.
Way
Next week.
Early.
Next week I'm getting mine up.
I'm sorry, you're supposed to be the good Catholic on the panel.
I am.
So you're not supposed to get your tree up till
the crib's going up in December, but the Christmas tree's going up
as well.
Of course.
You've got to have a crib, and look, not to be old-fashioned.
I showed you pictures of my crib.
I'm probably the only person I know, apart from my beloved mother, who wants an advent calendar without stuff in it. I don't want stuff.
Really?
I want a nativity picture.
Well, much to my children's chagrin now, I actually got one for a wee grandson of a friend of mine, and they've always had religious nativities for their advent calendars with no chocolate or anything behind it. Right? You can now get chocolate nativity advent calendars.
Oh, you can eat the baby Jesus on Christmas Day. I'm not sure about that.
Christmas Eve.
OK, well, I'll tell you what, we'll take a short break and we'll be opening the doors of the other stories right after this. Don't go away.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Online dating apps are still the go-to for millions of British adults, with 1 in 10 using them to look for a romantic connection.
Yes, are you one of them? Let us know. But with many apps introducing subscription fees and complex algorithms, the world of online dating has never been harder to navigate. So who better to join us to discuss this than Mr. Tinder himself, Stefan Pierre Tomlin. You have been dubbed Britain's best-looking eligible bachelor.
Yeah, so this happened back in 2016. Got an email from Tinder, and it was like, "You're the most swiped man on Tinder."
So just explain to us, for viewers who don't know, what is swiping? What does that mean on Tinder?
Yeah, so on Tinder, the app, if you swipe left, that means you don't like the person in front of you, and if you swipe to the right, that means you like that person.
So do you mind still being associated with that. It's a good thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it made me who I am now, and I love sharing how I was successful, and now I'm like a dating expert.
What's your situation now? Are you with anyone? Are you still single, paying the bill?
So I'm seeing someone at the minute. Things are going well, and I'm a dating expert, so I'm always giving advice to people.
Does she know your title of most swiped?
Of course, who doesn't?
Yeah,
It's quite hard. It's quite hard being the most swiped man on Tinder because you get a label on you. So I find it harder than anyone else, to be honest.
And where did you meet her? That's the big question.
At an event.
So not on Tinder?
Not on Tinder, ironically. Yeah.
So for all that troubled online, there's actually a real life rendezvous. Which
I mean, I have met people on Tinder in the past, and it has worked. Well, it didn't work, but yeah.
I need to know how to do the famous Stefan Smolder.
That camera is not a camera. That is your best friend, that's your lover. So you really smiles from the camera, so it goes like this.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, we're officially in winter, the dark nights and all that sort of thing. Alex, the Mail is reporting today about the battle over the thermostat and how it's raging at the moment at home.
Yeah, well, it'll be raging today as well because it's been 5 degrees, I think, last night. So it's getting pretty chilly. But this report says that 1 in 4, and I think this is way higher than this, but 1 in 4 households argue over the thermostat. And at least 18%, and again, I think this is really low, at least 18% get frustrated with their other partner. Now, I argue about the thermostat at least 3 times a week. It's at least 3 times a week, even in the...
What a waste of energy.
Come on, I mean, this is, I think, every household's problem. Because
What's the
everyone
setup?
feels... I like to keep it up. I like my house to be cool. But 18 degrees is the minimum for me before I start getting chilly.
Yeah.
And I know everyone feels the temperature differently.
So what would you like it to be at? Like 19, 20?
19, 20, I think, is a nice
I agree.
temperature.
I don't think 18 is tolerable, unless it's a bedroom.
Yes.
You know, in your living room, your kitchen, 18 is chilly.
It's
and that's
really
what my
cold.
temperature of my kitchen is at the moment. And I have had a row just last night about this with my husband.
Well, especially
I said, I don't mind it on the weekdays, but the weekends, we've got to have it warm and we're all around. I can shiver on my own, but I'm not having us all... What do you think, Claire? What's your...
18 is the optimum. Even
you like 18?
Oh, I do. I need it cooler. I really need it cool. And when the kids are all back, the temperature does rise in any event.
Yeah.
But, you know, put an extra pair of socks on or put a cardigan on, or everyone loves throws on their drawing room.
House, isn't it?
Sorry?
I bet Christmas is fun at yours.
Just watch it. Watch it. Don't poke the bear.
Like that. Oh.
You'll never know.
Years, Eamonn. I remember you used to love being freezing cold. When we were at Sky, I actually used to go home like a block of ice because we had like a fan and air conditioning. But you actually prefer to be normal temperature now.
Well, I went through the Manopause.
Oh! Another story we might have got to.
So, well, I'm a great believer in that.
Yeah.
The menopause and the Manopause. But I do think that 18 is a very cold temperature.
I agree.
For anywhere. I mean, your temperature should be around 22, 23 degrees.
You like it 22, 23.
Well, that's what temperature, I like it. I can change. I'm very variable, but I do think cosy is 22.
Yeah. I think 20 to be comfortable in a jumper in your house with slippers on. But any colder, it's miserable.
Well, there'll be loads of people this winter, unfortunately, not even turning it on because it's too expensive.
Why do you tolerate that?
Well, it's just quite difficult to heat our house. It's whole other story.
So, well, you just tell your husband what you want. Why are you so subservient? You're not subservient to me.
No, it's about compromise and agreement. So we've got a deal now that I'll shiver in the week and we'll be warm in the weekend.
Does Liam work from home?
Some days, yeah, but he's upstairs in his office.
Right.
Heat rises.
Yeah, well, our kitchen's
hot air
like
rises.
an old barn. So, no, actually, we probably ought to get a fan because I think whatever warmth there is goes straight up there and we need to push some of it back down. Anyway,
There we go.
Yeah, so there we go.
There we go.
Well, let's talk about the menopause, shall we, since you brought it up. It's a Daily Mail story, page 8. 1 in 10, I shouldn't laugh, hospital trusts have male menopause guidelines.
Right, well, really important to say first, before we all do laugh, that it's a real thing. It's a medically diagnosed thing. It is. Listen, I don't make the rules. I didn't make the medical rules, Claire.
You chose
it's a real
the story.
Thing. No, well, it's interesting because I'll tell you why.
Why?
1 in 10 trusts, NHS trusts, have a menopause policy, but over a quarter of them don't have a menopause policy. So, which is absolutely terrifying to think that our NHS trusts are run by people who think the menopause, which affects up to 2% of men supposedly,
So what
is
are
more
some
important
of
than the menopause.
What are some of the guidelines that these trusts are setting out to help men overcome this menopause?
Well, of course.
It's menopause, Claire. There's no point using that silly, supercilious tone all the time. Because, you know, as a person, as a human being or an animal gets to a certain age, hormonally they change.
Yes.
And that affects people in lots of ways. And therefore that is a menopause, call it what you want.
Well, I certainly not call it menopause because I don't think it exists.
It does exist. It does exist.
Tell us some of the guidelines.
Well, I mean, the report actually focuses more on the madness of it not being a menopause. But some of them include, you know, men who are suffering from anxiety and depression as a result of their testosterone levels, so more time off and things like that.
Testosterone drops from 18, but men reach their sexual peak at 18 and then testosterone goes off a cliff. By the age of sort of 30, 35, they've already done the menopause. This idea that it's sort of it's just midlife crises.
Again, spoken with ignorance.
Yeah, there we go.
You know, people just do not understand that in the 50s, men change unbelievably quickly and differently, and it's not recognised by a lot of people. So it'll happen to you. When you get to that age, it'll happen to you, and you'll say, Eamonn was right. There we go.
There we go.
Don't think the menopause will happen to me with any luck.
With any luck, no.
All right, listen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Alex Armstrong, Claire Muldoon. More from you soon, I hope, probably next week. But for now, we say good morning to Alex Deakin.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day out there for most. It is a bit colder first thing this morning compared to recent mornings, and there are a few fog patches around too. Parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, some dense patches of fog to be aware of for your morning commute. It's not completely dry. A few showers just drifting in there to parts of Essex, Kent. We may even see 1 or 2 in the London area at times through the day today, but they should be fairly light and move through on the breeze. Bit of cloud over central and eastern England, but for many, further west and north, it's dry, it's fine. Plenty of autumn sunshine, except where that fog sticks, which will suppress the temperatures. For most temperatures, after that chilly start, getting to about the average for the time of year, 9, 10, 11 Celsius. Feeling cooler, though, with this fairly brisk breeze across the far southeast, which will generate the odd shower, some for the coast of East Anglia as well. Quite a bit of fine and sunny weather for most, but that fog across Northern Ireland, even if it clears, could reform pretty quickly as we go through this evening. Much of Scotland having a dry and fine evening, but notice the cloud is increasing across the far northwest, so that cloud moving in across the Western Isles, bringing a few spots of rain before midnight. The showers in the southeast should tend to fizzle out as we go through the night, so most will become dry. Again, some fog, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, and across into parts of Wales, this kind of central zone. That's also where we're most likely to see a frost. Towns and cities holding up at 2 or 3 Celsius, but in rural spots we will be down to -2 or -3. So again, a frosty, foggy start in these central areas. A bit more cloud tomorrow over northern Scotland. So there'll be a little bit of patchy rain just trickling over the Highlands, clearing from the Western Isles. Perhaps not as many showers tomorrow across the southeast. So for much of England and Wales, it's a dry, fine and sunny day. Again, temperatures 10, 11, 12 degrees, but lower if those fog patches stick again.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M80 in Falkirk is partly blocked southbound by an accident at junction 7 at Haggs, with queues from junction 8 for the M876. In East Yorkshire, the A164 is partly blocked by an accident at the Willoughby roundabout, causing queues. On the M40 in Buckinghamshire, the outside lane's closed southbound, where there's an accident just after junction 3 at Loudwater. There are queues from junction 4 at High Wycombe. In East Sussex, the A27 is partly blocked westbound after an accident and oil spill between the Ashcombe roundabout at Lewis and the Rottingdean junction, causing queues. In Hampshire, the A343 is closed each way southwest of Andover after an accident causing queues. In Wiltshire, the A360 is closed along Northgate Street in Devizes because of a fire. And the M5 in Somerset is closed each way between junctions 24 and 25, between Bridgewater South and Taunton after an accident, with long delays towards there, and on the A38 as you divert.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Fury on family farms.
Farmers right across the country are gearing up to protest against the government's inheritance tax raid on the agricultural sector.
This comes as the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has criticised the government's policy.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
Emily Carver will be live from a farm in Exmoor.
Yes, I am live on Fernham Farm in North Devon. I'm learning about what it takes to be a farmer, the everyday life, and I'm just about to muck out the cows.
Pressure mounts on the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, to resign over his handling of a child abuse scandal involving the most prolific serial abuser in the Church of England.
The American envoy vows to fight climate change despite Donald Trump's recent victory, as the COP29 climate conference continues.
Fears grow that supermarket prices could increase following the government's national insurance tax raid on businesses. So we've asked this morning whether the move is immoral.
It's a bit colder out there this morning, and there are some fog patches around as well. But for many, it'll be a fine autumn day. Join me later for a full forecast.
There, just officially to say a very good morning to you, whether you're listening on radio or watching on TV. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has hit out at the government's changes to inheritance tax for farms.
Yes, in an exclusive interview with GB News, he has criticised the changes.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. You know, we are struggling. I mean,
not the protest. I'm assuming the inheritance.
No, the inheritance tax thing. You know, it is. We're struggling to keep people on the land to make sure that farmers are incentivised to hand over their business to their descendants. I think it's mad. It's absolutely mad. I don't know why they've done it.
Now, those comments come ahead of two planned protests in Westminster. They will take place next week. Over 10,000 farmers expected to turn up.
Well, let's cross live to GB News' Emily Carver, who's at a farm on Exmoor in North Devon for us. Lots of people who are opposed to this policy, Emily, say that there is simply just not an understanding of what life is like on a farm. Now, you're taking this upon yourself today to try and show us a little bit of what it's involved in the job, and what is their reaction to this policy?
Well, thank you very much indeed, Izzy and Eamonn. Yes, I'm here in North Devon at the Fernham farm with James Wright, the main farmer here at the farm. And he's got me doing quite a lot today. I was looking at some of the comments from some of our viewers and they were keen for me to get stuck in to some of the hard graft here on the farm. We're going to be mucking out this cow pen, I believe you call it, cow shed, where all the cows are, including the heifers, the pregnant cows as well. We're going to be mucking out some of the poo. But before we do that, let's have a little bit of a discussion about where we are with the state of farms and the government's policy. Did it all come as a bit of a surprise, this inheritance tax decision?
I mean, yeah, it did. I mean, last year in the Financial Times, Keir Starmer said that they weren't going to repeal agricultural property relief, and lo and behold, the budget comes around and they have. But yeah, very unexpected.
And why do you think they have?
I mean, it doesn't make any financial sense. It only raises £520 million. That's 0.04% of all government spending. They gave £9 billion in pay rises only a few months ago. So it doesn't make a lot of financial sense. This kind of feels like actually it's sort of a bit of a culture war on the countryside, which, you know, doesn't seem like a particularly good thing from a government that's only 5 months in office.
Yeah, so you see it as a culture war on rural communities, on the farming industry. Why would they want to launch such a culture war? Do you think it's an ideological pursuit?
Well, I mean, in 2019, Labour commissioned a report called Land for the Many. It's still on their website, and it talks about what their plan is for the countryside, and it's not producing food. It's doing all sorts of other things, and that's great, but the majority of farms are family-run farms. We don't need more corporations and charities in our countryside. We need family farms like this that employ local people and whose kids go to the local school. That's what's important about the countryside, and Labour don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, and last night on Patrick Christie's show, he had a former Labour special advisor on who suggested in quite clear terms, actually, that we don't need small farms, we don't need the family farms, and that actually Labour will or should do what Thatcher did to the miners and just sort of shut them down.
Yeah, I mean, how disappointing, isn't it? That's from a former advisor to Tony Blair. And to say such a thing on national TV, I mean, is that what Labour think? Do they want to cleanse the countryside, to make it all into corporate farms? I mean, the countryside doesn't need more managerialism. It needs family farms who are going to plant the hedges, cultivate the pastures and sow the arable fields. That's what we need. We don't need more Labour managerialists to tell us what to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that one, James. But seeing as you're talking about all the hard work that goes into farming, I guess I should probably help out a bit, seeing as I'm taking up all of your time today. So what am I going to be doing then?
Well, we've got to get this poo away from the backboard so we can pick it up with a tractor. So crack on.
And I'm using this. This is actually quite heavy for me. I don't have much upper body strength, so I guess we'll get stuck into the manure. So there we go. In there. Scoop it up. It's really heavy.
I feel like this is a rite of passage, Emily.
There we
Both
go.
Eamonn and I
This is a
have had
tough gig. I'm going to go for the slightly lighter manure. I've been told that this one won't be such back-breaking work for me. But there you go. See, I know your viewers, breakfast viewers, wanted to see me actually do a bit of work. So I listened, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So there we go. A little bit more, get it away from the wall. Right, I think that's about enough. I'll do some more in the break. Back to you, Eamonn, Isabel.
My goodness me, I've never seen a more urban-looking reporter there in my life, or both you and I.
Well done, doing your bit, Emily.
Whilst we've been out there doing our bit, we've both had encounters, haven't we, with manure. I actually, whilst reporting, had a cow actually, what's the word, excrement, and it went all over my excrete on me during a live broadcast, and it went all up my silk blouse during a live insert into the lunchtime news. It splattered all up my back, so that's probably on Tinternet somewhere. Yeah. And you've been knee deep in all of that stuff as well.
Absolutely,
it's a rite of passage.
Manure as a smell doesn't annoy me at all.
Me neither, especially horse manure. Lovely.
Yeah, cow manure, whatever. There are other things when you get, say, like a dog's poo or something.
Oh, yeah. Anything that's eaten meat.
Meat, yeah.
Listen to us.
No, but it's true. It's true. People would say, oh, manure, oh my gosh, what an awful smell. No, it's not an awful smell.
No.
So listen, Emily mentioned this guy last night on her husband Patrick's show, criticising the farmers and the need for farmers, and should we do away with farmers?
Absolutely.
Just have a look at this exchange. He's the Labour Party advisor, former Labour Party advisor, John McTernan. OK, see if you can make sense of what he's saying.
Boris called it dumb. I mean, is it dumb? I mean, the Labour Party have now won quite a few rural seats and they've managed to alienate them all, haven't they?
No, because most people in rural seats are farmers, but those who are farmers and small farmers won't actually be affected by this change. This is a change clamping down on tax avoidance. I'm not surprised that Boris Johnson wants to support tax avoidance, but the Labour Party doesn't support tax avoidance, avoiding inheritance tax through this device of buying farms, and that's right. The farmers still get a privileged status for their farms, and I think that may or may not be right. I'm personally in favour of doing to farmers who want to go on the streets, we can do to them what Margaret Thatcher did to the miners.
So just to be clear, John, you would, beat them up?
No, close them. I mean, this is an industry we could do without.
So, OK, all right, so this got weird. So you would do to farmers what Margaret Thatcher did to miners, which was, and she used very heavy-handed police tactics, followed by what? Putting them out of business.
If people are so upset that they want to go on the streets and spray slurry on them, then we don't need the small farmers.
I still can't believe that. I just looked up who he advised. We weren't actually sure who in Labour John McTernan was advising. He was Tony Blair's Director of Political Operations.
He's saying we don't need small farmers. There's people who you may economically make a case for or not, but then morally you've got to make a case for. I mean, just to say someone's not entitled to their lifestyle or their job or whatever for the sake.
And these aren't those tax avoiding, landed gentry who are buying up this land, which then means they can pass it on without having to pay tax. They aren't those people. They're people who are grafters. They're the backbone of Britain, providing the food that we all want to eat. I think that's quite shocking.
Yeah. The Archbishop of Canterbury is facing increased pressure to stand down over his handling of a child abuse scandal.
Yes, an independent report has exposed his failure to act on allegations involving the barrister John Smith, who's been one of the Church's most prolific abusers.
Keir Starmer refused to back the Archbishop, stating the issue was a matter for the Church.
Well, CEO and founder of Freedom from Abuse, Marilyn Hawes, joins us this morning. And Marilyn, I think it's worth pointing out that the abuse of John Smith was described as not only extremely violent, but also sexual in nature, affecting 130 young men and boys during the 1970s and 80s. And the allegation is that some of this harm, some of this abuse could have been stopped sooner if Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, had explored more energetically some of the allegations that were swirling around. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's absolutely fair. I mean, I call him Wokey Welby because he's got no spine, he has no leadership. He's not honouring the words in his own gospel that he's supposed to sort of go out and talk about, is he? I mean, it's untenable he can stay, quite honestly. And as for Keir Starmer saying that, no, it's up to the Church. No, actually, this is a crime. Keir Starmer, as we know, wasn't exactly on the button with Jimmy Savile. This guy, I mean, I met Welby in 2013, before the independent inquiry started. And I spent 90 minutes with him trying to get him to come out and really really firmly state about the abuse in the Church has been horrendous. He never does come out and say that. What did I think after 90 minutes? Nice guy, useless. He told me that, my job is to look after millions of Anglicans around the world. Well, you haven't done that, have you? I mean, they cannot be trusted. I said this at the time in 2013. The Church cannot be trusted in running their own safeguarding because child abuse or any abuse of any nature remains the elephant in the room. And it will continue to be covered up or ignored, and he can huff and puff all he likes about an apology. An apology does not help or bring back the innocence of those people who this man battered in his soundproofed shed, where he beat the living daylights out of them. And here we have a culture continuing of an unaccountable few who have disproportionate power. And if you did a straw poll of every single congregation in England, you would find quite a number of victims in every single congregation. How do they feel? I mean, my whole charity, my whole life that I do with Freedom from Abuse emanated from a Church of England head teacher sitting in the pew behind me in a Church of England church. Then it was Rowan Williams who was in charge, who was just as useless as Justin Welby. It's absolutely outrageous. No wonder the churches are emptying. I mean, there's no leadership, there's no strength. If he read the gospel, it actually does state there, any one of my children are harmed, you just as well walk through the depths of the ocean with chains around your neck. Except they don't want to lose the chains of office that they wear, do they?
Well, to be fair, I mean, let's see whether or not he does tender his resignation. It's certainly, you've made your case very strongly. I don't doubt for a second that Justin Welby is a humble and devout and good person, but whether or not he will reach the right conclusion, I suppose, remains to be seen. No, I mean, also, I think there is a temptation, and this happened with the Catholic Church a huge amount, to castigate anybody associated with the Church in some way. All priests are suddenly paedophiles. And I think it's important to make the point that there are lots of good people within the Church of England. But the people are lining up now, calling for him to tender his resignation. I've just read the last few moments that the former canon of Durham Cathedral, the latest the dean of the chapel at King's College. We've got previous victims of this man, John Smythe, who apparently he went on to try and kill himself as a result of the repeated beatings that he suffered. Clearly, this is going to be sort of the point beyond which the Archbishop cannot go on.
But of course he can't go on. I mean, of course he can't go on. If he had any accountability, if there's any shadow of doubt that hangs over him, the decent thing would be to resign. As in any other organisation, if the person at the top has failed to be accountable, has failed to actually act on something that I do not believe he didn't know. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I've been doing this for absolutely donkey's years, and I don't know what the church is like about safeguarding. It's, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. It's still the same. They don't want to know that, 25% of convicted offenders, sex abusers, child abusers, attend church. Why? Because there's kids in there. They don't want to open their eyes. They don't want to learn. And I don't believe the safeguarding is any stronger than it was when it went before the ICSA inquiry in 2013. Any doubt on his head, and there is doubt, then he should resign. Anybody. It could be the top of Marks and Spencer's. It could be head of Lloyd's Bank. If you're not running a sound, honest, with integrity organisation, leading a populace of people that are looking to you as being some sort of elevated person, I don't. He's just a human being. I don't go down that line at all. But that's not the point. You should resign. He has not led a strong church with the appropriate messages and leadership. And there's people who are still alive today who have been harmed. Then these were Christian camps, for goodness sake, that this man was operating on. He went to Africa. He saw these things. I do not believe he didn't know. And if there's any shadow of a doubt, for the sake of the church that is basically crumbling because of the attitudes, then, so be it. I mean, you have to be accountable. You have to take a leadership position, and he doesn't.
You're certainly very incensed by it, and we can see and sense that. We'll ask people at home listening and watching what they think. Have your say today, please. Thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. In response to those allegations, the Archbishop said, I recognise the courage of those victims, including those related to John Smith, who have come forward and relived their trauma through contributing to the review. I had no idea or suspicion of this abuse before 2013.
Nevertheless, he went on, the review's clear that I personally failed to ensure that after disclosure in 2013, the awful tragedy was energetically investigated. Since that time, the way in which the Church of England engages with victims and survivors has changed beyond recognition.
So every day we've been asking, running our poll of the day. Today we're asking, should Archbishop of Canterbury step down? Well, here's how it's looking.
99% of you have said yes, he should. Just 1% of you saying no. We will have a final result in Martin Daubney's show after that poll's been running for the day, but that is the result of our breakfast poll this morning. If you'd like to cast your vote, go to gbnews.com/poll.
We're in Baku in Azerbaijan. We're talking about the latest COP gathering, and we've got an interview with Ed Miliband next.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariapin. Really good
morning,
to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions and looking at how we develop more circular economy programmes. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, here is the Christmas giveaway. Yo ho ho, have a go.
Right, COP29, Sir Keir Starmer is set to unveil a new ambitious climate target committing to 81% reduction in British emissions by 2035.
Well, earlier our political editor spoke to the Secretary of State for Energy, Security and Net Zero, that is Ed Miliband.
Well, I think there are other world leaders here. We're here because it's in our national self-interest. Chris, this is about the jobs of the future in clean energy. A big announcement today from Scottish Power, £1 billion investment in Hull, 1,300 jobs manufacturing on offshore wind turbines, really, really important. But it's also about working with other countries to tackle the climate crisis. When you look at events in Spain, for example, those dreadful floods that we've seen in Spain, killing hundreds of people, we know, I've seen it in Doncaster in my own constituency, that this can happen. We've got to work with others to tackle this problem.
Keir Starmer's taking a leading role. Reports in The Guardian say you want to cut emissions by 81% since 1990, up from 68% by 2030. That goes to 2035. Why are we being an outlier on this? Aren't you making people who listen and watch GB News suffer for your climate goals?
We're doing it to benefit people who watch GB News. Take clean energy, for example, Chris. We now know from the independent National Energy System operator that clean power by 2030, the government's central mission, will mean not just energy security, it's not just achievable, it will mean lower costs of electricity. That's because the big change in the last 15 years is renewables are now cheaper than fossil fuels, and those terrible price spikes, the terrible cost of living crisis we saw following Russia's invasion of Ukraine,
That's because we were exposed to those fossil fuel markets, those dictators that control those markets. It's time to get some control, but take back control, Chris, to coin a phrase. Take back control of our energy system with homegrown clean power. And those cuts in bills, when will they happen? We promised in the election, we're still waiting. By 2030, that's when they're going to happen. That's as we're moving towards clean power. The energy system operator confirms it will lead to lower costs of electricity. It's the right thing to do. It also gives us insurance against those price spikes that we saw. How will we get
that interview just in from Baku in Azerbaijan, where the COP conference is taking place.
More reaction on GB News throughout the day, but that's it from us for breakfast. We'll be back bright and early at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Up next, it's Bev and Andrew with Britain's Newsroom. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day out there for most. It is a bit colder first thing this morning compared to recent mornings, and there are a few fog patches around too. Parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, some dense patches of fog to be aware of for your morning commute. It's not completely dry. A few showers just drifting in there to parts of Essex, Kent. We may even see one or two in the London area at times through the day today, but they should be fairly light and move through on the breeze. Bit of cloud over central and eastern England, but for many, further west and north, it's dry, it's fine. Plenty of autumn sunshine, except where that fog sticks, which will suppress the temperatures. For most temperatures, after that chilly start, getting to about the average for the time of year, 9, 10, 11 Celsius. Feeling cooler, though, with this fairly brisk breeze across the far southeast, which will generate the odd shower, some for the coast of East Anglia as well. Quite a bit of fine and sunny weather for most, but that fog across Northern Ireland, even if it clears, could reform pretty quickly as we go through this evening. Much of Scotland having a dry and fine evening, but notice the cloud is increasing across the far northwest, so that cloud moving in across the Western Isles, bringing a few spots of rain before midnight. The showers in the southeast should tend to fizzle out as we go through the night, so most will become dry. Again, some fog, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, and across into parts of Wales. This kind of central zone. That's also where we're most likely to see a frost. Towns and cities holding up at 2 or 3 Celsius, but in rural spots we will be down to -2 or -3. So again, a frosty, foggy start in these central areas. A bit more cloud tomorrow over northern Scotland. So there'll be a little bit of patchy rain just trickling over the Highlands, clearing from the Western Isles. Perhaps not as many showers tomorrow across the southeast. So for much of England and Wales, it's a dry, fine and sunny day. Again, temperatures 10, 11, 12 degrees, but lower if those fog patches stick again.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 on Merseyside, there are 2 lanes closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 7 and 8 west of Warrington, causing queues. On the M40 in Buckinghamshire, the outside lanes closed southbound just after junction 3 at Loudwater after an accident with queues from junction 4 at High Wycombe. The M4 near Bristol is partly blocked eastbound at junction 21 for the M48, causing queues. In Wiltshire, the A360 is closed along Northgate Street in Devizes because of a fire. There are queues towards there. In Hampshire, the A343 is closed in both directions southwest of Andover after an accident causing queues. The M5 in Somerset is closed each way between junctions 24 and 25 between Bridgewater South and Taunton after an accident with long delays on the A38 as you divert. And in East Sussex, the A27 is partly blocked westbound by an accident between Lewes and Falmer causing delay.